Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Tsunade trains Naruto for Genin test part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Sitting atop 4th Hokage's head at Hokage Rock, a 4-year-old boy with jet black hair and grayer eyes looked at the colossal mess that was Konohagakure right now. Half the village was in shambles, which is not surprising, as yesterday night was the occasion of Nine-Tailed Demon Fox's attack. The boy looks down and notices civilians were moving out of the evacuation shelter in the monument. Some were crying, others were consoling them, a few were frantically looking searching, but everyone had an air of desolation. The boy sat there from sunrise till sunset without moving a single inch, staring at the devastated village. At night, a ninja bearing the Kurama clan insignia came and addressed the boy. "Itsuki, by the orders of Kurama Elders Council, you are hereby removed from Kurama clan. You are banned from using the Kurama surname and insignia and are ordered to be relocated into the Konoha General Orphanage." Itsuki just dumbly nodded. Getting confirmation, ninja disappeared via Shunshin. "Mother, you left me alone in this cruel world," Itsuki said softly. He was under no delusion she could be alive. She too was clear of this when she went to fight Nine Tails. A Jinjutsu expert like her being sent to the front line, which requires heavy assault fighters, while heavy hitters were not called to front lines. For elders of the clan to not silently kill me, she must have made some preparations in advance. It is even odder if you take into account the low population of Kurama after the Third Great Ninja War. They will be willing to remove me from the clan, but not kill me. They will never get such a chance until I become a genin. My death can be easily hushed up if I was in the clan, but Kurama clan is no longer influential enough to mess with Uchiha Police's investigation. Letting out a self-deceptive laugh, Itsuki says out loud, "And here I thought I could live carefreely." He knew how clans operate. He knows what cesspool of filth the so-called most peaceful hidden village is in reality. His mother made sure of it to hammer into him the real face of the village. His clan will never let him go in case I pass on the bloodline of the Kurama clan outside of their clan. Even if I don't have Kurama bloodline, to them I am too much of a risk. And then there is Danzo. The moment I display any sign of manifesting Kurama bloodline, I would be immediately deported and shipped to Root Anbu boot camp. And to think Root is still legal as the Uchiha massacre is 7 years away, I would have no chance of escape once Danzo digs his claws into me. Itsuki stops laughing and gets up, jumps down the Hokage monument with agility and strength no 4-year-old has any right to have. Moving in small steps towards the orphanage, he was sensing many chakra signals moving to and fro, sometimes clashing and sometimes going out completely. Some chakra signals were flaring, but either they were deep underground or outside the village walls. So the battle for the seat of Hokage, senile old monkey Hiruzen versus delusional old fox Danzo of sorry god of shinobi Hiruzen Saratobi versus Warhawk Danzo. Pretty sure casualties of this conflict would be chalked up to Nine Tails. After a long time walking and staying in high population areas to avoid being in the wrong place at the wrong time, Itsuki arrives in front of a 3-story building that is thankfully intact. Registering his name as an orphan was easy, just his name, his birth date, and his parents' names were required, later 2 of which he did not give. It is not odd for a 3-4-year-old to not know his parents' names and his birth date, especially if it is after a traumatic event. As small it may be, it will provide buffer protection in the orphanage. The new building was repurposed after the destruction of the last orphanage and to handle more children was much larger than the previous orphanage. Getting a small room on the top floor, Itsuki looks outside the window and watch morning people trying to rebuild their lives the best they can and some low-level ninjas in the spirit of Will of Fire helping along with the civilians, completely unaware of a bloody battle of succession going on below this grieving village. Itsuki takes out a carefully hidden scroll about as long as the length of his hand from his robes and reads the note attached outside the scroll. "All the things I owned and all my life's work is in this scroll, and yes Itsuki, I know you can read well enough since you were 2.5. Who do you think I am? I also know of your secret training. Why do you think you would always find basic stuff conveniently laying around at home? But I think you already figured that out. You were always clever like that and I am very proud of you and always will be. I know you could easily figure out the culprits behind my death, but I hope you do not burden yourself with thoughts of revenge. Since I was born I was always chained to a clan that only viewed me as a political tool, and chained to this village which viewed me as inferior for being a woman and treated me as a tool, and I don't know which offends me more. But my son, you do not have to chained, even if it is for my revenge. I know your life will be difficult in this cruel world and if I could, I would not have left you alone, but sometimes in life, we have little choice. So my baby, I hope, above all hope that you live unfettered. Starting Academy. 2 years have passed since Nine Tails' attack and life in Konoha has more or less returned to normal. Even after suffering great losses, Konohagakure is still regarded as the strongest hidden ninja village, although its position of hegemony over the entire continent has weakened quite a bit. The day it was a special occasion in the orphanage, as those 6 years old and above would get a chance to enter Konoha Ninja Academy and get a chance to become a ninja. For impressible young children who were raised on stories of 1st and 4th Hokage, the choice was obvious. Almost everyone of the appropriate age applied without fully realizing they were enlisting up for becoming soldiers and assassins. Everyone applying was noted and instructed to report to the academy next week. Itsuki watched everything when he heard a call from behind. "Itsuki, there you are. Have you applied to the academy yet?" questioned a middle-aged kind-looking lady. Itsuki nods quietly. Matron nods smilingly and goes about fussing on other children. "Say what you want about Konoha, but a lot of people here genuinely care about children. Hashirama Senju, the first Hokage, build the village so that children don't have to die in wars. The generous donations of civilians and support from Hidden Leaf keep it going, considering this orphanage is for orphans of Nine Tails attack. Every orphan is given a generous stipend, and caretakers are kind and considerate. It would have been perfect if some children did not disappear overnight and their disappearance is quietly hushed up. Pretty sure Danzo is behind all the disappearances. Everyone who disappeared was younger than 8 as far as I know," Itsuki thought. That would mean at least 2 years of carefully avoiding the spotlight. Itsuki reached his room and closed the door behind him. Closing his eyes, he tried to sense if anyone is nearby. Feeling his room clear, Itsuki moves to a corner in the room and touches a point under the desk. For a second, seals activate all over the room and vanish. With this, I can safely proceed. Although it took over a year to make the entire array just by copying it, it was well worth it. Array prevented any form of scrying and chakra sensing inside the room. It was quite a shock when I read Mother's notes. Although I knew she was proficient in sealing, but to be a seal mistress. Scroll actually contained many larger scrolls sealed inside, each containing money, ninja techniques, and her whole life's research in seals and chakra. Some scrolls on sealing also had Uzumaki clan symbols. I have no idea how she got something so precious like that. When Uzushi Agakure fell, very little of its sealing knowledge actually ended in hands of other ninjas. Even decades back before its destruction, Uzushi Agakure was centuries ahead in terms of art of sealing. But first I need to work on the basics. Chakra sensing was another topic extensively covered in research notes. Although he was quite good at sensing chakra, it couldn't hold a candle to the technique her mother was trying to make. Sensors sense chakra by molding their chakra, which in part requires effort and concentration, because of which well sensing, ninjutsu, taijutsu, or jinjutsu cannot be preformed, making sensing obsolete in combat. On the other hand, his mother was trying to make his completely different. A sensing technique that could passively sense chakra without active effort. Theoretically, such a technique will have an even larger radius if sensing than conventional sensing barrier and senjutsu. And I remember someone who could do something similar in the future. Karen Uzumaki, if I remember correctly, had a sensing technique Orochimaru developed, Mind's Eye of the Kagura, which could also sense passively, along with sensing emotions and having a very large sensing radius. Training chakra extensively now can put me at risk. The moment my chakra grew better, I would stand out and ship to root program. Damn, every day feels like walking on a tightrope, one mistake and I fall to my death. Itsuki contemplated. Bringing out writing supplies, Itsuki mixed some of his blood in ink and used a brush to start practicing sealing techniques. He kept practicing until falling asleep. Next day, Namika's orphanage. Knock knock. Itsuki, wake up. Don't be late for academy on your first day. Rubbing his eyes, Itsuki slowly woke up. Hurriedly sealing his supplies, he deactivated the seal and got ready and made a run for Ninja Academy. The day I, Suzuki Ishida as the principal, welcome all new students and their parents. But before you start on your journey to becoming splendid ninjas, let's welcome our beloved Hokage Lord Third to share his wisdom, exclaimed a stout-looking man wearing a Jonin flak jacket, but I think he is a Takebetsu Genin. The third Hokage, a short old man with red-tipped triangular Hokage hat, came forward, much to the applause of all those gathered. He smiled softly and started his speech. Konoha was founded by first Hokage, so that next generation of. Throughout the speech, I kept intently staring at Hokage. Not because of his speech but because of his chakra. I have continuously sensing skills, and with help of the notes left by my mother, I have become proficient enough to sense chakra passively, but until Hokage came forward, I did not even sense him. Now that I concentrate on him, his chakra pool is huge, but flowing so smooth and calmly that any lesser sensor ninja would have completely missed him until he was directly behind them. The command such control over the chakra, no wonder he is god of shinobi. Suddenly I realize that this world is full of monsters like him. Cage of each village, Orochimaru, Akasaki, Obito, Madara Uchiha, Kagaya Otsutsuki, Tonari Otsutsuki, and many others which will appear in the future. My dream will become a dream in infinite Tsukiyomi if I am not strong enough. Hokage finished his speech, and academy teachers begin calling names of students of their respective class. But Itsuki remained in deep thought. Previous life I lived has long ended. But I gained another chance, and I would be a fool to not treasure it. Itsuki, no surname, to class 1C, called out a teacher. Itsuki went to the instructor and took his pass. Bowing in thanks, he then started moving towards his assigned class, while sensing chakra signals hidden all over the academy and around Hokage, each outclassed his by miles. He sensed the Hokage's chakra which easily dwarfed every chakra present in the academy, added together and clenched his fists. He clenched even harder, realizing how outclassed Third Hokage is in front of monsters like Madara and Kagaya. One day I will surpass all. Itsuki said with steel in his voice. Class, today is the day you all have been waiting for a whole year. We are going to unlock your chakra. But before we begin, can anyone tell me what is chakra? Chun, an instructor of our class, a tall brown-haired man with the name Fusao Nakamura. He appeared to be in his late 20s, a respectable age for a ninja, especially when his age means he had gone through the third great ninja war as a Genin cannon fodder. Very few come out intact after that, those who survive are either very lucky, very strong, or very clever. And no one will ever call instructor Nakamura dull. Sitting in the training field, the entire class was hanging on instructor's every word. 1 year has passed since Itsuki started the academy. The entire first-year students had been hammered with basic knowledge about geography, maths, economics, language, and a highly edited history to make it appear hidden leaf-friendly. Intense physical exercises were performed daily to bring bodies in shape and ready for chakra circulation in coils, but not a single word related to chakra was uttered until today. Chakra is created when two more primal energies, physical energy from each of the body's cells and spiritual energy derived from the mind's consciousness known collectively as one stamina, are molded together. So to unlock your chakra you need to, Itsuki droned out the rest. He knew it well enough. Since his first day at the academy, every free moment not spent on sealing was spent on understanding chakra. Chakra was extensively studied since the time of the Sage of Six Paths to reach present understanding, so further research on generally would be extremely unproductive. But I know something others don't, that chakra does not belong to humans. Chakra is the energy possessed by the Otsutsuki clan who obtain it from the chakra fruit of god trees. A simple understanding that changes everything. Itsuki thought while trying to find faults in sensei's explanation based on his understanding. It's not like he is completely wrong, just lacking an understanding about how chakra does what it does. Spiritual or yin component of chakra increases through studying, meditation, and experience. All insights while researching had started to make my yin half skyrocket beyond manageable, and I still have no permanent solution for hiding my chakra. Now take the smallest leaf you can find and start by focusing on Tenketsu at the center of your forehead place. Keep at it and then slowly bring leaf in hand just above the Tenketsu. Then release the leaf and see if it sticks to the forehead. If the leaf is not sticking, try concentrating harder and try again. Fusao sensei taught class leaf sticking exercise. Hey. Itsuki-chan, see this, it's so easy. With a jerk I turned towards the obnoxious voice and gave her a stink eye while ignoring the aforementioned nuisance blowing raspberries at me and pointing to leaf sticking between on her forehead. Hana Inuzuka, the bane of my existence. Wearing a sleeveless jacket and knee-length shorts, she had long brown hair which she wore as a ponytail and 2 locks of hair framing the sides of her face. Her chubby cheeks had red fang tattoos which I may have found cute if her black eyes were not always trying to make me spontaneously combust. Since he first met Hana, for some reason she always tries to rile me up. But I, being the responsible elder, even if only in mind, kept myself above these petty squabbles. That is until she found my weakness. Hey Shorty-chan, look here Short-chan. Her nerve, I thought while glaring at Hana, who was half a head taller than me. Puberty hit girls earlier than boys, so they start to grow faster earlier, even more so this world. Me being short has always been a sore point, and being among the shortest in the whole year does not help it either. Go bother someone else wallflower and pointedly ignore her while channel just enough chakra and Tenketsu for the leaf to stick. Then he lowered output just below the required and watch as the leaf kept sticking. He gradually kept lowering it until the leaf slowly slipped on his skin before briefly catching it with Tenketsu between his eyes and letting it fall. Satisfied, he once again picked up the fallen leaf and went back. But his masterful control was missed by everyone but Hana and Fusao sensei. Later nearly smiled and wrote something in his file. Hana too knew she just watched something amazing, but she could not put her finger on it. She too tried to do what he did but to no avail. So students, this is it for today. Now move along. Fusao watched every student, but his gaze lingered a moment longer on Itsuki. Standing up, I give one last look towards Hana, who was still trying to futilely replicate my little stunt, fully aware of Fusao-sensei's attention. Walking up to the orphanage, he directly went to his room while ignoring everyone else. Flooping straight on his bed, he tried to calm his beating heart. He did not show his chakra control trick because he wanted to show off, he did what he did by carefully taking into account all the risks and rewards. A few weeks ago he was able to disable the protective seals on Academy archives and shuffle through the records. He was able to shuffle through records of students that had vanished. It was a shock seeing records of missing children still intact. Perhaps because root is still legal, while just being a very well-kept secret, they did not think to traces remove traces, or perhaps Academy and Danzo does not work as closely as he previously assumed. Whatever the reason, it worked to his favor. By going through the record he looked for any pattern. Everyone who went missing had been a recipient of a regular stipend, meaning either an orphan or from a poor civilian family. In both cases, if they went missing, no one even a little important will care. Second, every one of the children had above average chakra, high Taijutsu score, and a few other factors. Surprisingly, chakra control was not among them. Moreover, the second form of selection is in the form of recommendations by their instructor. Instructors are told to recommend students for various programs like Fast-Track Barrier Unit Program, direct recruitment into the Intelligence Division, or something along these lines, but the Barrier Unit comprises less than 3 at a moment. Even when working in shifts, it would at max be 3 teams working together and a few reserves. The Intelligence Division comprises almost entirely of Nara clan members. The same problem can be seen with other so-called recruitment, and considering said students were never heard from again, it's safe to assume most if not all ended in the root program. He noticed one more detail: Fusao-sensei only ever recommended one student in his 5-year-long career as a teacher. He never did it again, not even considering every recommended student is marked as a huge positive in a teacher's file. Then again, he is very perceptive. He must have noticed something after the student vanished. But it could also be that he never had anyone good enough to recommend. Perhaps he noticed but never bothered. Perhaps the whole recommendation was a hoax created after a child goes missing to provide a cover. He looked outside the window and noticed night has arrived. It is getting very difficult to cover up in class. Every test has a hidden test. Every quiz has a hidden agenda. Creative writing tested loyalty. The drawing exercises are a preliminary test to know your ceiling potential and evaluated the emotional state. IQ tests were taken almost every day, and each child was carefully monitored through these. Such a system is supposedly designed to root out child spies planted by enemies as well as see that children are doctrined to the philosophy of Konoha. All this effort to get perfect teen soldiers. Maintaining a high enough score to not get removed from the academy while maintaining it low enough to not appear outstanding while simultaneously appearing as a normal on those hidden tests was not easy. But neither Anbu nor Root ever recruits one type of ninjas, and that are those combat medics. If I could establish myself as a combat medic aspirant, I could get a lot of leeways. Expanding my chakra sense, I securely placed my mother's scroll inside my jacket and kept a lookout. Another peculiar detail was that everyone recommended never returned after the first day on new academy year. Which means if anyone's gonna come for me, they will come tonight. Sensing as most of the orphanage had gone to sleep, Itsuki forms his hands into a ram seal. If worst comes to worst, it's not like I am truly helpless. The diamond-shaped dark-colored seal materialized on his forehead. Genin medic program. The strength of the 100 seal is a jutsu from the era of Sage of Six Paths that is reputed to be the pinnacle of chakra control. By storing vast amounts of chakra over an extended period of time into a specific point on their body, usually the forehead, the user creates this seal which manifests in the form of a diamond-shaped marking. It is ranked as an S-class supplementary Fuinjutsu and is also famous for being notoriously difficult. The only known practitioners being Mito Uzumaki and Tsunade Senju. And I have now added my name to this elite club. As I focus on every chakra signature passing by, tensing when a signal passes by a little too close, I link chakra in the seal to the tenketsu between my eyebrows, right under the seal. This gives me access to a near limitless chakra that can turn even my rudimentary chakra enhancement technique deadly. This is what I am counting on in case the worst comes to worst. But to my immense relief, the night passed uneventfully. When the sun rose, Itsuki finally lets his guard down and deactivated the strength of the 100 seal. The diamond-shaped mark vanished from his forehead. He laid on his bed to get a quick shut-eye. After staying up all night anxious and alert, he now could barely keep his eyes open. "Knock knock, wake up Itsuki, it's time for breakfast," his neighbor informed him kindly. Itsuki groaned. The Noha Ninja Academy. Itsuki settled himself at the very end of the class. He pulled a shikamaru and simply closed his eyes and laid down on his sat just as I got a wink of sleep. "Wake up." Someone yelled in my ear. All my ninja reflexes worked against me as I instinctively tried to jump up but jerked to the side and promptly fell to the floor. I look up from my position and see Hana Inyazuka giving me a smirk while all class laughed at me. Shaking my head, I get up, sit on my seat, lay my head down, and simply ignore everyone. The laughter dies down and I can feel Hana glaring at me. But before she could do anything, Fusao-sensei entered our class. The day passed uneventfully. By the end of the day, Itsuki was barely awake. Just as he was leaving the class, Fusao-sensei called him from behind. "Itsuki, can I talk to you for a moment?" Itsuki nodded. But all sleep left him. He watched as all students left and only he and Fusao-sensei remained. "Itsuki, in your file I read you wanted to become a combat medic. Usually, children your age opt for ninjutsu master or heavy assault. Setting being a medic as your career goal, it's very odd. Why do you want to become a medic?" Trying to calm his rapidly beating heart, Itsuki replied being a medic is the safest choice and even if I do not make it like a ninja, I could get a decent job at the hospital. Although the reasons are not quite true, they are not wrong either. But the main reason I wanted to become a medic was that they are always underestimated. Even the most outstanding medics have barely enough chakra compared to normal ninja. That is why no medic is ever recruited in Anbu. Being an outstanding medic will not garner any wrong attention and might even prove helpful. Being a medic is a noble pursuit. Fusao-sensei nodded, but becoming a combat medic is a very hard path. So far only Tsunade-san can be called a competent combat medic. Being a medic is good enough. I simply nodded. "Itsuki, I have a proposition for you, but first let's wait for someone to arrive." A chill shot up my spine as I feared for the worst. Before I could continue my line of thoughts, the classroom door suddenly sprang open. I snapped my head towards the door so fast that I may have broken something. But contrary to my expectation of seeing rude Anbu or even Danzo, there stood Hana Inyazuka. "So you are finally here," Fusao-sensei exclaimed. In all my life I was never so glad to see Hana as I am now. I even gave her a smile so wide that it weirded out her a little. "Both of you have applied for medics, Itsuki as a combat medic and Hana as a veterinary medical ninja. You both have adequate chakra control. But you should know that becoming a medic is very hard. A lot of knowledge is required before even attempting any medical. To develop more medics, Hokage has approved a program for aspirant medics. If you sign up, you could access the medical section of the Konoha Shinobi Library and upon graduation, you would be tested for your knowledge and skill in Mystic Palm Jutsu. If you are adequate, you would get to learn under medics at Konoha General Hospital. So, what do you think?" "I agree," Hana immediately replied. I on the other hand thought about a little. Access to Shinobi Library was a huge positive and would greatly help in my research. But on the off chance, it is a trap. I looked towards Hana. But with Hana being in the same group, heir apparent to one of the most powerful clans in Konoha, it is highly unlikely someone will try doing anything underhand. "So where do I sign up?" I replied. "Welcome to Genin Medic Program," Fusao-sensei smiled. The next day we got our library passes. Approaching the base of Hokage Stone, I reached an obscure door with a bored-looking ninja standing beside it. Although the area looked clear, I could sense at least 2 Anbu teams guarding the location. I show my pass to the guard, he opens the door and lets me pass. After walking through a long narrow tunnel covered in a multitude of seals, I arrive at what looked like a receptionist's desk in a large room. On it sat an old man bending over some obscure notes. Surprisingly, he had almost no chakra, meaning a civilian. He lifts up his head and narrows his at me. I show him the pass and he simply points towards the left and goes back to his work as if that was supposed to explain everything. I move towards the pointed direction. There was another cave and I started to move towards it. From what I was sensing, the entire cave complex was huge and covered almost half the Hokage mountain. I could sense it because almost all walls of the entire cave complex were covered in seals and they emit a very low amount of chakra. Even the most skilled sensor may not sense them, but my sensing skills are just that good. After walking through a surprisingly well-lit cave for some minutes, Itsuki reached what looked like 2 adjacent rooms burrowed into cave wall using earth ninjutsu, one labeled medical and other seals. Both rooms' entrances were protected by extremely strong barrier seals. A single Chunin guard stood between both rooms. Itsuki showed him his pass. He simply checked Itsuki's photo and pressed the backside of the card on the barrier of the medical section. The barrier disappeared and he handed back the card. Itsuki walked inside and the barrier sprang back on. Picking up a random book on body structure and started reading, but his mind was focused on the sealing section. Even though he was proficient enough in sealing, he just didn't have enough knowledge to go around. There were a lot of sealing methods that his mother had no knowledge of and was not included in her notes. Seeing all the knowledge so tantalizingly close yet out of reach. Gears started to turn in his head as he started coming up with plans to get his hand on the sealing texts. After forming and discarding multiple plans, he couldn't think of any way he could pull the heist undetected. The only way he could pull off this heist is either by being able to directly teleport in and out of the room or by becoming invisible, cracking the sealing formulas of the barrier, copying the texts while remaining invisible and unnoticed the whole time. I take a look around the medic section, noting all titles for future reads, and move out. On my way out I sense a hidden chakra signal with way too much chakra concentrated in and around eyes. Damn, just great. A Hyuga and their damned all-seeing eye. Even if I became invisible to a sensor ninja, a Hyuga can still easily pick me out. And what's even better, they are immune to almost all genjutsu, so I could not even. Wait, genjutsu? A revelation hit me like a freight train. Returning to my room, I quickly activate the cloaking seals, unseal his mother's scroll, and pulled out a scroll with notes on the Kurama clan bloodline. Kurama clan is famed for its genjutsu. What makes our genjutsu so powerful is our ability to control all 5 senses of the person trapped in illusion, effectively making them a puppet to the caster. This why the Kurama clan is so feared. You can control your enemy to kill their own partners, get intel out of someone while making them believe they are just reporting to their superior. These are just some very basic applications. But these are nothing in comparison to what a select few who have unlocked their bloodline to an extreme can do. They can literally shape reality. I knew of Kurama clan genjutsu and seeing I share the bloodline, I purposely avoided developing genjutsu to not appear conspicuous. At its peak, the Kurama clan's bloodline, this is a terrifying ability that could easily make Kurama bloodline the most powerful bloodline, even when compared to the likes of Rinnegan, if not for its severe drawbacks. Only those born with an abnormal amount of yin chakra can access this power. But excess yin overpowers the yang, so everyone who had this ability had a very weak body and extremely narrow chakra pathways, discouraging any proper chakra development among the users. Kurama clan bloodline was never able to flourish due to these drawbacks. But I had unknowingly reached a solution to the problem. Invisibility created using altering reality is impossible to detect, even by a Hyuga, as it is more similar to the creation of all things. The fabled jutsu sage of 6th path used to create 9-tailed beasts than a genjutsu. Chakra is used to create a change without being part of the change itself. I am pretty sure it could go around ninjutsu and genjutsu immunity of 10-tailed Jinchuriki. But I will have to first master the bloodline, although yin chakra and strength of 100 seal is theoretically enough to perform reality bending. If my suspicion is correct, then it is not pure yin release, given how similar it is to creation of all things, which is yin-yang release. From now I should start brushing up my genjutsu skills and start developing my bloodline. My chakra control is already up to par, and now that I can keep siphoning off excess chakra in the seal, I have no excuse to not develop my yang chakra. Reaching a level of chakra control to continuously siphon off chakra and storing it in the seal is extremely difficult. Even now he has to keep a small part of concentration to keep refining chakra to be added. Not only this method enlarges his chakra coils and thus increasing his chakra reserves, but it also continuously tests his control and keeps up with steadily growing chakra. Although the moment my chakra control is not adequate, the seal stops storing my chakra. But I have more than enough confidence in myself when it comes to chakra control. Between academy, bantering with Hana, genjutsu practice, rapidly developing my medical ninjutsu knowledge, improving my sealing knowledge, and trying to come up with a plan to break into one of the most secure buildings of the strongest military power in elemental nations, 2 years quietly passed. The day was 10th October, the occasion of Nine Tails' attack and subsequent defeat at the hands of 4th Hokage. The whole village was in a festive mood. But more importantly, at least to me, everyone was being served sweet desserts after dinner at the orphanage. The mouth-watering fragrance filled every corner of the mess hall. Eagerly I received my portion and sat down at the back of the hall. Just when I was about to dig in, I sensed someone stare. Looking towards the left, I saw a scrawny kid about 4 or 5 years old with spiky blonde hair and most expressive blue eyes looking longingly at my dessert. His white t-shirt with a red Uzumaki symbol was covered in grime and dirt, along with few splotches of blood. Everyone seemed to ignore him, and even normally kind caretakers were sending him hate-filled glares. When our eyes met, he hurriedly looked down. With a sigh, I got up and placed my desserts in front of him. But before he could refuse, I simply left. Blue Eyes followed him as he left. Itsuki was completely unaware that his simple act of kindness would change the future. Enter Uzumaki Naruto. The day was the 11th of October, the sky is clear, the sun is shining, a cool breeze rustling the autumn leaves, and the menace named Hana nowhere in sight. All in all a perfect afternoon. The 9-year-old Itsuki happily hummed to himself, looking cheerful. And why would he not be? He just got himself an internship at Konoha General Hospital. And a rather generous pay, let's not forget that. The geezers at the hospital doing their best fish impression when I performed the Mystic Palm Jutsu was also quite a bonus. Mystic Palm, despite being the most basic medical ninjutsu, was notoriously difficult to perform. So when a 9-year-old performs it exceptionally, medics at the hospital would be fools to ignore him. Giving him an internship is only an excuse to reel him in. With this, his future as a medic is quite secure. All of a sudden I sense a strong chakra signal following me covertly. I show no outward reaction but actively focused on sensing. Yup, definitely an Anbu. His emotions are not stunted enough to be a root ninja. But why I am being followed? Along with Anbu, I sensed another, smaller chakra following me which I was subconsciously ignoring due to the signal being much smaller than Anbu's. A blonde mop swiftly ran from behind the trash can and hid behind a streetlight's pole. So this Anbu is playing babysitter to our resident Jinchuriki. I chuckled to myself, relaxing a little knowing I am not the Anbu's target. This goes on for a few minutes. I walk through the village enjoying myself, Naruto following me, Anbu, and me ignoring both of them. At one intersection while trying to hide, Naruto bumped some grunt-looking academy kids. "Hey, watch where you going." A tall buff-looking kid about 12 years old exclaimed. But when he saw Naruto, his expression changed. "Hey you, I am talking. Apologize now," kid nearly screamed at Naruto. "I am sorry," Naruto quietly said. As if in mutual understanding, another kid screamed, "Is that a way to apologize?" I knew this wouldn't end well. I wanted to help him, but Naruto was too high profile. Being close to him is a surefire way to attract the attention of every bigwig in the village. No way I would even change. But the sheer loneliness and pain radiating from him broke my resolve. Sighing, I moved to the side and hiding in from plain sight, I formed 3 hand signs and transformed myself into Fusao-sensei. I appear at the back of kids who look like they were seconds away from beating Naruto to the ground. Gently coughing, trying to change the pitch of my voice to emulate Fusao-sensei's voice and gain the attention of kids. "What is happening here?" I spoke in my best imitation, simultaneously controlling my chakra to move the mouth to move according to my voice, maintaining the pitch in my voice and maintaining transformation technique. Kids looked startled. They tried to stammer a response, but I directly cut them. "At lost," I said, and they readily followed. I immediately released the jutsu after seeing them vanish around the corner. Naruto looks a little startled upon seeing me. "So why are you following me?" I asked. Naruto immediately goes a little red. But his response was conveniently cut by the rumbling of his stomach. I sighed, looking at his body, he looks barely fed. Knowing the hatred village has for him, it is not surprising. "So anything you would like to eat?" Naruto's eyes went wide at my question and immediately shouts ramen. With such exuberance that it seemed his previous downtrodden expression seemed an illusion. But I could clearly sense in his emotions, pain, loneliness was still there, along with a bit of hope, relief, and happiness. My heart really goes out to him. I nodded. Might as well celebrate a little for getting an internship. But that I remembered I don't know of any restaurant. And to be honest, between all the training, research, and studying, I barely had any time, and almost all my stipend was spent on weapons and other supplies. So where can I get this ramen?" I asked, a little unsure. Naruto looked at me like I may as well be from another planet. "You do not know of ramen?" Naruto looked at me with surprising intensity. All I could do was nervously shake my head. "You do not know of food of the gods?" Blasphemy. I inwardly chuckled at his poor attempt at pronunciation. "You do not know what you are missing." He held my hand and pulled me towards I assume where Ichiraku ramen stand is. Reaching a wooden ramen bar built on side of a small building labeled Ichiraku ramen, Naruto immediately pulled me inside. Inside I see Tucci the chef but no customer. Naruto looks expectantly at me, I smile and give him a go-ahead to order anything he wanted while I order miso ramen. While we wait for ramen, I asked. "So kid, what is your name?" "My name is Uzumaki Naruto Dadabayo," he replies in excitement. "Nice to meet you Naruto, I am Itsuki." He looks at me weirdly and asks, "You have only half a name?" "That's weird." "That's coming from someone named after ramen topping," I fire back without any heat. Before he could reply back, Tucci arrived with our order. With a customary greeting, we dig right into our food. The food was delicious, perhaps the most delicious I have ever eaten in this life. It is something which could be sold in most high-end restaurants of Konoha for 10 times the current price and it would still sell like hot potatoes. But for this place to be deserted despite being in the middle of the most popular shopping district, that doesn't make sense. I look towards Naruto devouring his second bowl of ramen and Tucci smiling at Naruto. Civilians can be explained by the store's willingness to serve Naruto, but ninjas, seems like I totally underestimated the power of the civilian council, or is it something else? The Civilian Council is the board of influential civilians which was formed to safeguard the interest of civilians in Konoha, as well as govern civilian matters. But the truth of the matter is council comes directly under the Hokage office, and Hokage has full say and veto rights in any council decisions. I hope that I was just overthinking the matter, if not then through my association with Naruto, I was making another powerful enemy. Finishing my bowl of ramen, I paid Tucci and promised to visit again. Along the way, I learned that since yesterday, Naruto has been transferred to my orphanage. As we reach the orphanage, I sense Anbu following us leaving. After Anbu completed his mission of observing and guarding village Jinchuriki, he returned to Anbu headquarters and went to his quarters. Removing his crow mask, Itachi Uchiha wrote his mission report. The next day, the mission report was presented in front of Hokage. He read the report and asked for the file on Itsuki. After reading the file, Hokage pulled out some forms and started filling them. After a few hours later, Hokage visited the Namikaze orphanage and personally brought Naruto to his new apartment. The copy of the Anbu report was delivered to Elder Danzo Shimura. After reading it, Danzo took Itsuki's file and read through it. HACHI8. A root appeared and kneeled in front of Danzo. Throwing Itsuki's file in front of him, he ordered, "I want you to find everything about this boy, especially his time before the orphanage and names of his parents." Rude Anbu took the file and vanished via Shunshin. It has been a few months since Naruto moved into his own apartment. He was quite sad about leaving, but promised to visit as often as possible. This, when coming from Naruto, someone who values his promises above everything else, meant he came every day. I had to stop him to keep it to at least once a week. His apartment is on the other end of Konoha, and given how antagonistic people of Konoha are towards Naruto, crossing that distance is a health hazard in itself. The internship in Konoha General Hospital has proved very fruitful. There I learned to use how to truly use the Mystic Palm technique on the human body. Contrary to my expectations, Mystic Palm is considered quite a high-level technique, such that any medical nin who can perform is very well respected. Most healing is done by converting chakra into healing chakra and carefully administering it to patients. So me being able to perform Mystic Palm, something most medics struggle with, was kind of a big deal. After learning all basic medical techniques, chakra scalpel, Mystic Palm, antidote jutsu among others, I was given full access to the medic's library, which I am using to my maximum capacity. Which often means staying at the library till morning and sleeping at the academy. Fusao-sensei is quite understanding of my situation and also quite proud. Given that I have a bright future as a medic, he does not force me to listen in class. But today I was not going to get any rest. All the class was gathered in the training ground by sensei. From the corner of my eye, I saw Fusao-sensei talking to a woman wearing a Chunin flak jacket. Suddenly a strong breeze appeared out of nowhere, lifting all leaves ground. I cover my eyes with my arm when out of nowhere a sudden sense of doom gripped my heart. I immediately jumped from my position. Looking around, I find myself on the roof of the academy, but there is a strange silence in the air. I look for my classmates, but the field was empty and neither could I sense anyone close by. Dread filled my mind as made hand signs, desperately trying to sense anything, anyone, but came up empty. I frantically look around when I hear crashing sounds coming from far away. I turn my attention towards the sound and saw Hokage rock with 7 faces, each in a state of disarray. A strong sense of déjà vu hits me. Just at that moment, in the blink of an eye, day turned into night. Fires burning everywhere, Konoha that was so silent just a moment ago was now filled with screams of terror. I could hear none of it, for all my focus was focused on silhouettes floating in the air. Chakra radiating off them was beyond anything I ever felt, but what made my back drenched in cold sweats wasn't chakra, but the emotions I was sensing. The cold clinical disregard, hate, anger, and intent to kill all meshed together was oozing out with such intensity that I fell to the ground, eyes wide in terror. My mind went blank, but a small part of a small, rational part of my mind made me make half tiger seal. Hi. The hellish world broke apart like a mirror. I was back in the academy training ground surrounded by kicking and screaming classmates. I took deep breaths, trying to steady my heartbeat and trying to process what just happened. Fusao-sensei and female Chunin came forward and one by one dispelled the Jinjutsu on students, along with passing us with blank sheets. Everyone was quiet, other than slight panting and rustling of leaves, no other sound could be heard. For a few moments, Fusao-sensei silently stood in front of us, looking pensive, giving students time to come to grips with reality. Pointing at the blank sheets in our hands, he said. Just now, you were under demonic technique. Hell viewing Jinjutsu. It shows each one of us our deepest darkest fear, conscious or unconscious. I want each of you to write that what you saw. For a ninja, we often have to face our fears in reality. A shinobi is one who endures, that is why having an unyielding mind, along with a strong mind as well as body and love for the village, is required to become a ninja. I fear, what do I fear above all else? If someone had asked me before I would say me wearing a root Anbu mask. But now, it reminded me of something I had forgotten. The destruction of Konoha at hands of the Otsutsuki clan at the start of Boruto. But the destruction of Konoha occurred after the death of Naruto and his illness. By the time Naruto became Hokage, some form of chakra-based disease was eating away his vitality, slowly making him weaker. I could barely wait for the day at the academy to be over. I bolted right out of the academy after go to by Fusao-sensei. I was anxious, scratch that I was downright terrified. In past months the loud exuberant blonde had wormed his way into my heart. In the future, even Sakura and Tsunade were helpless in front of Naruto's illness, and having studied medicine, I now know just terrifying illness had to be to elude Tsunade, much less Sakura, who would surpass even her aforementioned mentor. Jumping from roof to roof, I made my way to Naruto's apartment. Itsuki is a genius at chakra control. For him, it is simply not possible to fail to notice foreign chakra entering his system, especially for a weak D-rank genjutsu. In his concern and shock, Itsuki neglected these facts. Neither did he notice the chakra signal of a person hiding in the training ground. After the class was dismissed, the person hiding jumped up from his position and shunshined to an outgrowth near the academy. The aforementioned person was wearing an Anbu attire, but with a blank mask. Lifting an expertly hidden trapdoor, the rude Anbu made his way through a complex of tunnels and kneeled in front of an old man with X-shaped scar on chin. Anzo-sama, subject Itsuki, was tested with Kurama's secret technique. Hellscape. The subject took 3.4 seconds to escape the said genjutsu. Rude Anbu droned monotonously. Anzo knew how powerful Kurama clan's techniques were. For someone to escape it in such a short duration, much less an academy student, is nothing short of a miracle. Danzo kept his face impassive and asked the Anbu the question whose answer he desired most. Does he has Kurama clan bloodline? The Kurama clan member stayed silent for a moment before responding. Subject has a 95% chance to possess the basic bloodline abilities and a 20% chance to possess the complete bloodline. Danzo nodded and dismissed the Anbu. Looking in Itsuki's file, he noted his achievements as a medic. He is as talented as a medic as Itachi is in shinobi arts, Danzo considered. There was no better praise he could give even if he did not like Itachi. A fleeting view of hell. He made a discreet signal and another rude Anbu appeared kneeling in front of him. Move subject Itsuki's priority to level B, but leave him for now. Focus on the Uchiha clan for now. But keep an eye on his reports and his interactions with Jinchuriki. Report if any significant change occurs. I might need a skilled medic in the near future, a job that subject Itsuki can fulfill. And if he had the full bloodline, he would prove an extremely useful addition to Root. Danzo thought, gears turning in his head, plans forming to pull real Itsuki and Root. He is really close to the Jinchuriki, that could be useful. Upon reaching Naruto's apartment, I stood outside the door outside for a moment while trying to calm my rapidly beating heart. Without knocking, I enter his apartment, shuffling sounds were coming from where I sensed Naruto's chakra. Reaching the room, I saw Naruto stuffing something under his bed. I was quite relieved to see him well and to seem all well and good. In hindsight, I had no need to panic, but the genjutsu left quite an impact. I stared at Naruto, who was trying to look anywhere, and immediately knew something was fishy. Looking at his bed, I smiled mischievously. Using the full maneuverability of a ninja, I jump over him, spin midair, use the roof to push my body towards his bed, and before he could blink much less turn, I retrieved what he was hiding under his bed. I looked at Naruto with a smile, but my smile turned a little stiff when I noticed what I was holding in my hand. To an untrained eye, it would look like a normal scroll, but I had dabbled for almost my entire life, I would never mistake a Fuinjutsu scroll. Opening the scroll, I looked at the Uzumaki symbol at the start. Reading further, it was an introductory text to Fuinjutsu. Naruto, where did you get this? I questioned, my tone leaving no room for argument. I got it from the academy library. For a non-academy student like Naruto, it means he stole it. I narrowed my eyes. An Uzumaki scroll is impossible to be present in the academy library. Moreover, Naruto simply could not breach the containment seal of the library. There is something fishy going on here. But first I had to know why Naruto stole in the first place. I sat next to Naruto and looked him in his eyes. I softly spoke. I am not criticizing you, Naruto. It's great that you wanted to learn sealing, but why you want to do it? You could have asked Lord Third for learning. Why steal? I knew full well Hokage would not ever let a Jinchuriki touch sealing with a 10-foot pole. I asked the old man to learn seals, but he directly banned me from ever learning them. He did not even listen to what I said and just did that. Naruto's eyes teared up. I knew Naruto just went against direct orders of Hokage. He started narrating his reasons. You know, when I asked you why you had no surname, you answered that you don't know your parents so you don't get one from them. I nodded. Kurama clan kept a tight lid on the matter. I was able to keep myself separated from the clan and appear as a regular orphan. I signal Naruto to continue. So I asked Old Man Hokage why I had my surname Uzumaki. I thought maybe I could find about my parents. But the old man said that he gave me that surname. He said he named me after a clan that used to be Konohazale but was destroyed in war because other nations feared their Fuinjutsu abilities. For that I at least wanted to be worthy of my name. I silently look at Naruto. He keeps looking down. His chakra radiated despair. At that moment, so many things became clear to me. I gently wrapped an arm around his shoulders and pulled him in a hug. All the frustration, pain, and loneliness he endured finally overwhelmed him, and his happy facade broke. He started sobbing on my shoulder. It was painful to see him like this. All I could do was embrace him and let the torrent of tears to soak through my shirt and let him vent his heart out. I understood why honoring Uzumaki name is so important to him. For his entire life, he was surrounded by hate. To him, every day is a desperate struggle against the world, alone and unloved by everyone. He does not even know the name of his own parents, so what defines him in this world? He must have asked himself every day whether he really is the demon everyone calls him. In his bleak life, the name Uzumaki must have been the last thread that holds his sanity together, a link to reality. For Uzumaki, Naruto is not a demon. We stay like that for a long time. He finally stops crying but was emotionally and mentally spent. I lay him on his bed and use a minor genjutsu to put him to sleep. There was only so much a 5-year-old can take, and he needed a long rest. After Naruto was sleeping peacefully, I turned my attention to Fuinjutsu scrolls. They being in Naruto's possession does not make sense at all. A quick read revealed they contained the most basic sealing knowledge. The information also followed the Uzumaki school of thought. All Uzumaki scrolls have special preservation seals on them that make them extremely resistant to wear and tear. He tore a small corner of paper from the scroll. It easily came out, no resistance whatsoever. Clearly not an Uzumaki scroll but a copied one. Someone who had access to the Shinobi Library seal section wanted Naruto to have this. But why and who? What could someone possibly gain from this? Not knowing any clue whatsoever, Itsuki could only sigh and stop thinking so hard. Today events were finally catching up to him and he felt very tired. He sat on a chair and went to sleep, but not before placing discreet seals on all doors and windows that could warn him if someone enters. Just a few blocks away from Naruto's house, a figure was crouching down in the tree branches. The figure was a tall and well-built man with long white spiky hair tied in a ponytail and wore a green short shirt kimono and matching pants, wooden sandals, and a red haori with 2 yellow circles on each side and horned forehead protector with kanji for oil written on it. He was looking at Naruto's apartment through a telescope. An earring with a long piece of paper that had an Uzumaki spiral distinctively similar to the one on Naruto's Fuinjutsu scroll. Jiraiya listened to everything Naruto said to Itsuki. When the boy suddenly questioned Naruto on Fuinjutsu scrolls, Jiraiya realized Itsuki probably knew of Naruto's status as a Jinchuriki. Since he came to know of Boy's association with Naruto, he had read his file. Boy did not appear to be much talented in ninja arts, but his talent in medical ninjutsu was reported to exceed even the likes of Tsunade and a scary intellect to match. The complicated expression passed his eyes. The involvement of Itsuki could derail his plans. It won't be long before he starts to suspect something. Looks like I have to personally meet the boy. Jiraiya's life was full of failures. His first failure was being a decent human being, but being a pervert was not something he regrets. But the same cannot be said for the rest of his life. When the Toad Sage gave him the prophecy, he didn't pay it much attention. He was young, arrogant, and never understood what peace actually entails. But then the Second Shinobi War started, and that changed him. He fought and killed in name of Konoha, but when the haze of war cleared, all he could see was his hand covered in blood. They always felt filthy since. He saw so much meaningless death and found himself powerless to change anything. All could see was a world trapped in an endless cycle of hate and war. After the end of the Second Great Shinobi War, he was ashamed of the atrocities his own village caused. Therefore, when he met 3 orphans in AIM, he felt responsible for them. He taught them to become competent ninjas, but when he saw Nagato's Rinnegan, he remembered the prophecy and believed perhaps Nagato is the child of prophecy. Nagato's desire to keep others safe inspired him to write his first novel. It was an instant failure, but he was already used to them at this point. He left the orphans after they were strong enough to protect themselves. But then the news of their death reached him, leaving him devastated. Then came Minato, a bright child way more mature than he ever will be. His desire for peace moved Jiraiya, and he took him as an apprentice. As years passed, he came to believe Minato to be the child of prophecy. The Third Great Ninja War begins, and he vowed to not involve in the fighting. He left the village in the guise of operating an intelligence network. The war burned on, but Jiraiya never went to Konoha, but his contributions as intelligence were enough. Then Minato butchered 1,000 Iwa ninjas in the blink of an eye, and for the first time since war, Jiraiya went back to Konoha. Minato still had his smile, but his eyes now carried a haunted expression. That night Minato confessed over sake that his hands feel filthy. When the war ended, Minato became Hokage, married Kushina Uzumaki, and got her pregnant. They decided to name their child Naruto after the main character of his first book and named Jiraiya Naruto's godfather. Nine Tails' attack was entirely out of blue. By the time I made it back to Konoha, half the village was in ruins, Minato and his wife dead, his godson having to carry the burden no child should ever have to. He only allowed seeing his godson for an hour, and that too just to check his seal. His own sensei forbid from ever contacting Naruto for a Jinchuriki need proper environment to grow. Hourless and broken he left the village and spent 5 years drinking away his pain. But his guilt of failing Minato and his godson finally overwhelmed him and he returned to Konoha. Perhaps as an act of rebellion against Hokage or perhaps for Naruto to continue his parents' legacy, he gave Naruto Fuinjutsu scrolls while making sure Hokage does not get any wind of it. But he never accounted for anyone else finding it. But then again being dead drunk tend to make you overlook things. Standing up from his hidden position, Jiraiya took another sip of sake before throwing the bottle into the growing pile and decided to meet the boy his godson is so fond of. Itsuki woke up with a start. Someone had broken the seal on the window. Whoever broke in had a humongous chakra, even larger than the third Hokage. That instantly put me on edge. Moreover, the emotions coming off that person were confusing. Sadness, regret, pain and so much more, it felt like a person had lost all mental inhibitions. I left the bedroom and quietly closed the door behind me. I could make out a slight hint of sake in the air and looked behind the dinner table. A partially transparent figure was crouching behind the table. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" I asked while discreetly pulling a kunai out of the pouch and holding it behind me. Upon hearing my question, the figure dropped the improper jutsu and became visible, and before Itsuki stood the Toad Sage Jiraiya in all his drunken glory. The medical nin in Itsuki realized Jiraiya was suffering from symptoms of extreme alcohol consumption, and from the looks of it, he had been drinking enough alcohol to knock out an elephant. The ways his eyes were unfocused and chakra fluctuated, desperately trying to fight against the effects of alcohol, the lack of mental inhibitions made sense. "I am the Gret Toad Sage, hear me Anabi." Jiraiya at this point was too far gone. The alcohol in his system muddled his thoughts. The only goal in his mind was that his godson needs to carry on the legacy of his parents. He pointed at Itsuki's chest and said, "You are gonna help teach my godson that about Sealy." Before he could finish, he felt a prick on his neck and the whole world went black. Itsuki standing in front of Jiraiya vanished and the real figure of Itsuki standing upside down on the ceiling appeared. Jumping down, he crouched in front of the fallen figure of Jiraiya and pulled a senbon out of his neck. Itsuki smiled, he could work with it. He just got permission to teach Naruto from a figure whose authority is only second to Hokage and elders, and they could not cancel an order that they do not know of. Now he just needed to make sure he and Jiraiya are on the same page. Jiraiya woke up with blinding headache, but he was already used to those. He was also used to waking up in an unfamiliar room. What he was not used to was waking up with his chakra bound. That made any sleep vanish from his eyes. He immediately sat up and was surprised to find himself not bound. Looking around, he assessed the situation. He was in some kind of room, single bed, a study table too short for an adult. The door opened and a boy around 10 years old with black hair walked in. "Ah, you are awake," the boy exclaimed. Jiraiya remembered the boy, he had read his file, Itsuki, a boy who was close to Naruto but too high profile to be assassinated due to his prodigious talent in medical ninjutsu. Last he remembers, he was spying on Naruto when the boy came and he heard the heartfelt conversation between the two. Then he drank himself to oblivion. No, he went to the boy and… "Holy st, I got bested by an academy student." And the fact he all but said Naruto is his godson and asked him to teach the said godson the set about sealing, and if he gets a hint about Uzumaki clan, then Jiraiya was panicking, it would not take Itsuki to connect the dots and figure out who was Naruto's father. Itsuki rolled his eyes. He could practically read the thoughts off Jiraiya's face. Clearing his throat to get Jiraiya's attention, he stated, "Last night you made a proposal, I accepted." Jiraiya's jaw dropped and before he could say more, Itsuki replied, "Perhaps the seal holding you is enough demonstration of my qualification to teach your godson. Moreover, I can't possibly ignore a direct order of Sannin." Jiraiya replied, "Understanding my line of thought, and if someone higher than me finds out." Itsuki replied with a smile, "Then it would be on you, after all, how many know you have a godson? Moreover, there is a big what if." Meaning behind the words was clear, if I know about Jiraiya's godson, then it must have been Jiraiya himself who could have told. He could not deny the accusation if he was found. The threat in the words was also clear to Jiraiya. If the situation blew out of proportion, then many would come to know about his godson. It's only a matter of time before someone figures out Naruto's lineage, and considering Naruto's blonde hair and blue eyes, so similar to fourth Hokage, it won't take much time. Then Naruto would have to bear the enemies of his father, both inside and outside the village. Jiraiya asked after some thinking, how sure are you to be able to hide all this? In a ninja village, very few secrets ever remain secrets. His teaching Naruto is bound to come out sooner or later, but if it could be delayed until Naruto becomes a Chunin when Hokage promised to allow Jiraiya to take Naruto as a student, then perhaps it could work. Itsuki merely smiled at Jiraiya's question and made a half-tiger seal. Lines of seals covering the entire room materialize for a second before vanishing, but one look in Jiraiya could not help but widen his eyes. He was currently sitting in the middle of a highly advanced sealing formation of levels he only heard of in Kushina's stories of Yuzugakure. He was also feeling a little dizzy and for the life of it, he was seeing Itsuki laying on the bed, but he knew he was still on the chair in front, despite all his senses saying otherwise. An ensnaring seal's formation. Jiraiya wondered in his mind. Soon seal materialized again for the second time, and the illusion disappeared. What would you want to help Naruto? What do you stand to gain? Jiraiya asked. Tell me Jiraiya-sama, if you find a child hurting, lonely, and hungry, would you rather help him or walk away? Jiraiya did not reply. He remembered about the orphans in aim. Itsuki extended his hand forward. Jiraiya looked at him for a second, and then his giant hands engulfed Itsuki's small hands, and Toad Sage let out a loud laugh. Your formation may be good, but Sensei has a technique to spy from distance. He may get suspicious if he is not able to see Naruto. Itsuki nodded. Formation was not able to ensnare scrying, so it was designed to stop it altogether. Jiraiya really was a sealing master to figure it out so quickly. Don't worry kid, I will take care of my pervert sensei spying on Naruto. Jiraiya said with an evil laugh. In Hokage's office, an old pervert shuddered. A year has passed since Itsuki's encounter with Jiraiya. He had been teaching Naruto ever since. Naruto is naturally talented when it comes to seals, but a lack of proper education is holding him back. Before going too deep into seals, Itsuki is mainly teaching Naruto primary education. It is 2 more years before my graduation, and Naruto is soon beginning the ninja academy himself. On the other hand, my medical nin training has come to an end. But before becoming a full-fledged medic I recommended myself to become a senior medic. I have all the qualifications bar one. Every medic had to master an A rank medical and certain other medical ninjutsu like Mystic Palm, Charka Scalpel, Poison Extraction, and others jutsu which cover all facets to medical ninjutsu. The other requirement was to submit a research paper on the topic of medics choosing on medical ninjutsu, which I am currently working on. Tsunade's rise to fame came through her research paper, which defined that cells of the human body could only divide a certain number of times before becoming incapable of any further division leading to death. This result was directly tied to her trademark technique Creation Rebirth, which forces cells to forcefully divide to obtain rapid healing in combat, but at a price of reduced lifespan after every use. Her paper was phenomenal at the time when cells were believed to be immortal. My research is also heavily linked to Tsunade's because while it's known a limit exists to the number of cell divisions, no one knows why. Moreover, all medical techniques are yin chakra based, also just heal by accelerating the natural healing of the body one way or another. But I remember from my previous why a limit to cell division exists. Also, yang based healing displayed by Naruto later on completely bypass such restrictions. Snake Sage, Toad Sage, and Otsutsuki living for thousands of years do not make sense either. So I decided to develop a yang-based healing technique to hopefully find something, but I have no idea where to begin. No one had ever developed yang-release medical ninjutsu ever, or at least no one who made them public. It's simply not done and goes against half what you know about medical techniques. Sighing, I flop back on my chair after hitting another roadblock in research. In front of me is a fish laying on paper with complicated medical jutsu formulas written on its surface. I hoped to reproduce Mystic Palm using Yang Chakra instead of Yin, but so far had been unsuccessful. Knock knock knock. The plain-faced black-eyed man wearing standard high-collared Konoha medical nin uniform, which looked like a maskless biohazard suit, enters my office. Even though not official, I was considered a full-fledged medic and got an office for research purposes. Good morning Captain Kido. I get up and greet the newcomer. In field, medic nin usually operates in a 4-man cell, and their leader is called the captain. Captain Kido is someone who I apprenticed under, and once I became a field medic, I will most likely work under him. Good morning to you too, Itsuki Kido replied politely. My relation with him had always been amicable, but we maintained a professional attitude while working with each other. Kido took out a storage scroll and placed it on the table. A request came directly from Hokage's office. They want you to analyze this. I opened the scroll and passed chakra over the seal in the standard Konoha release pattern. A white piece of cell culture which had a disturbingly high concentration of yang chakra was released from the scroll. "So what is this?" I asked Kido. Kido shrugged and replied, "No idea. We were only informed it was obtained from Orochimaru's lab back when he fled the village." Before I could continue to explore more, Kido advised with a concerned expression at Suki, "We were said that this was kept in refrigeration, but between you and me, both can clearly see cell culture is freshly grown. If I were you I would be careful." I nodded. It didn't take too much thought to know what these cells were and who sent them to me. It is troubling that Danzo is taking a personal interest in me, but on the other hand, I should thank him for delivering Hashirama's cells to me. I immediately went to work to analyze the cells. Kido, watching himself being ignored, and merely smiled. As a fellow medic, he certainly understood the thrill of working with something new. Itsuki spent the entire day and night on the cells. Hashirama was well known for his combat prowess, crowned as the strongest man since Age of Six Paths, but very few know that he was also a very accomplished medic. Madara himself praised him in his battle against 5Kage, and also placed Tsunade's creation rebirth at the same level as her grandfather's techniques. And that could be seen in his cells. Without a doubt, Hashirama used yang-based healing techniques, but even more phenomenal is that despite having passed a limit they could divide long ago, cells were still functioning properly and not developed into cancerous cells. But to say they could be directly planted in the human body as Danzo wants is the height of foolishness. When placed in a foreign body, they simply act as cancerous cells and slowly kill the host. I simply have no idea how Madara simply placed them on his body and did not kill himself, but I can guess it is probably due to his own chakra-empowered yin chakra he obtained for being Indra's reincarnation, which is directly inverse to Hashirama. Yang balanced each other out, also giving him Rinnegan in the process. I would like to study the cells more, but looks like Danzo is getting impatient. I could sense a hidden Anbu with muted emotions hiding near my office since the last hour. Taking a few small samples from the cell culture, I store the rest inside the freezer. I deliberately took all notes with me while leaving my office in case someone decides to shuffle through my hard work. After reaching the orphanage, I was out the moment my head hit the pillow. Next day, I was sleeping in class when Hana woke me up by sharply poking in my ribs. Over the past year, Hana had started to mature both physically and mentally, and we have started to treat each other with grudging respect, along with usual banter. I raised my head and saw the entire class staring at me. I looked towards Fusao-sensei for an explanation. "You are being called to Hokage's office," Fusao-sensei explained, pointing at Anbu standing outside the room. I nodded and walked to the Anbu. "Anbu-san, let's just get it over with." Anbu's mask hid his reaction, but I know for sure he smiled. Side-along Shunshin was extremely uncomfortable for the passenger. He took my arm and directly and Shunshined in front of Hokage's office. After pretending to get my bearing for a few moments, I entered the building. Hokage's secretary directly leads me to the main office, and after waiting for 5 minutes, I was standing directly in front of the third Hokage Hiruzen Tsurutobi and his advisor as well as head of Root Anbu Division Danzo Shimura. "Aheyo gozaimasu Hokage-sama." I formally greet Hokage with a low bow. Hokage takes a deep breath from his smoking pipe, exhales, and gave me a nod, acknowledging my greeting. He then put forward a file and gestured me to read it. I inwardly roll my eyes. Intimidation tactics on a 10-year-old. Have some shame. I pick up the file and read a single-paged report regarding the cell culture I was given to study. It appeared the imbeciles in the R&D department could not even determine if the cells were of human origin or not. Granted, the excess yang chakra and cellular regeneration might off-putting for a single gene-based test is all that is required. At the end of the file, it was mentioned the cells were last given to me for study, where they were lost due to an accidental fire in my lab last night. I almost laughed at the last part. Genin candidate, Itsuki no surname, you were the last person in contact with these cells. By record, you had 1 day to work with these cells, and I would like to hear what you could find on the cells. Before deciding your punishment was left unsaid. I nodded. They were in for a shock if they think they could corner me that easily. By just calling me here alone and ordering me to explain, they were breaking some serious protocols which even Hokage could not carelessly break. They can easily justify their actions if they state I lost first Hokage's cells, which, despite not being mentioned in the file, I am pretty sure both Hiruzen and Danzo know. For the full report, I need the removal of anyone with less than S-rank clearance and the presence of senior medic Magusa. That took them by surprise. Despite showing no change on their faces, their chakra clearly conveyed their surprise upon me, calling upon an S-rank secret disclosure procedure. In less than a minute, an old man wearing standard medic garbs with markings that cover the upper half of the left and right side of his face entered the office. Magusa is the de facto leader of medics in absence of Lady Tsunade and the only person with the power to declare a medical record as an S-rank secret. Before leaving, I knew Danzo would try something, so I showed my findings to Magusa, and given that the cell belonged to the first Hokage, declaring any research pertaining to them an S-rank secret was a given. Magusa's face was rigid and he could guess why he was being called. Seeing me, he gave a nod and a shallow bow to Hokage. Hokage explained why he was brought here and he looked positively livid for breach of protocol, for calling me as a typical request had to go through him before calling me. Hokage, ignoring Magusa, made a hand sign and all hidden Anbu left the office and an isolation seal formation activated. Magusa came forward and started the preceding Konoha S-rank archive, ID 1143, archived by Senior Medic Magusa, the primary participant Genin Cadet Itsuki, no surname subject to mortal cells. Hokage nodded and I came forward to give my report. On January 11th, I was delivered a cell culture by Senior Medic Kido, under direct orders of the Hokage office to analyze the sample. Cell culture was highly concentrated with yang chakra, which interfered with normal medical procedures to identify the cells. So procedures were performed by killing a small cell sample to remove interference. At that Magusa, who was reading the R&D department's report, nearly laughed. This was the problem that interfered with R&D's work for years. But he did not believe it was that easy, for cells showed remarkable vitality. Killing them without damaging them would have been challenging on its own. I continued. The procedures showed properties of cells similar to human flesh cells, and according to the protocol, the cell's genetic makeup was cross-referenced with the genetic database of the Konoha Medic Department, which came as a null. So further tests were performed and cells showed a capability to infinitely replicate despite not being cancerous in nature. Further testing revealed the subject had a Kikei Genkai of water and earth nature, along with being a practitioner of Senjutsu. At this, both Danzo and Hiruzen perked up a little. Cross-referencing the data, only first Hokage, Hashirama Senju matched the description. At this point, I classified cell culture as a Class S genetic material and according to procedure, tapped it with grade 3 incendiary charge seal. Danzo's eyes twitched. His rude Anbu must have tried to temper with my research when the charge blew up, leading to fire in my office. 2 samples of said cells were delivered to the cold vault for safekeeping before I reported my findings to Senior Medic Magusa. Hiruzen looked deep in thought while Danzo directly asked what he wanted to know the most. Orochimaru was trying to integrate cells with humans to give them wood release. What do you think are the chances this procedure could be successful? I tried not to focus on the fact that Danzo just spoke would most likely an A-rank secret in front of Hokage and replied after thinking a little negligible, at best 1 in 1,000 if we ignore external factors. Any and all failures would die, so I do not recommend this course of action, not to mention if any experiment was a success, the prowess of wood release would be very weak. Danzo showed no facial expression at my explanation, but his chakra conveyed his frustration. It was understandable as he has a lot of personal stake in it. Danzo always revered wood style since he saw the first Hokage use it and wanted it for himself. It is also the reason Yamato was only rude Anbu he personally trained. Hokage's face, on the other hand, was impassive as always. Even his emotions were way too calm for me to get a read on him, and that scares me more than anything. Genin Cadet Itsuki, you are dismissed. Hokage spoke. As samples were preserved and I followed all protocols, Hokage had no premise to punish me. I bowed and went out of the office. I appeared calm on the surface, but every second in Hokage's office felt like walking on a tightrope. It was a close miss with Hiruzen, but Danzo will probably not leave me alone. He will still go with implanting Hashirama's cells to balance the Sharingan. And then he will need an expert medic to keep them on balance, and what better medic than me for this job? He will be docile now, but if and when his route gets disbanded he will get desperate. I directly skip academy for the day and went straight to the orphanage. As I opened the door, a red-colored messenger toad was sitting on the desk. Giving him the necessary code, I took the scrolls sent by Jiraiya from him. There were 2 sealing scrolls of Uzumaki origin and a letter addressed to me. Since our last meeting, Jiraiya has been on the hunt for anything even remotely associated with Uzumaki legacy and has been collecting and sending any sealing scrolls among them to me. At the same time, his contacts inside the Konoha's ninja forces have started to actively look into Danzo's activities, but it has been a futile endeavor, but other than Danzo actively marginalizing the Uchiha clan, not a whiff of his activities was uncovered. And considering what little I know of Jiraiya's network, that is damn impressive. Say what you want about Danzo, but he is one sly fox. Sly but predictable when you know what he wants. The same could not be said for Hiruzen, but thankfully I am not under his radar. I write a letter to Jiraiya about Naruto's progress and today's meeting with Danzo and warn him about a possible connection between Orochimaru and Danzo. Giving it to the toad, who vanishes in a puff of smoke after receiving the letter, I open my notes on Hashirama's cells. Working with Hashirama's cells has given me a lot of insights into healing using Yang chakra, and I immediately started to work on creating a Yang-based healing technique. Itsuki had little idea that he had stumbled upon the path to creating what would end up known as the greatest ninja technique to ever grace elemental nations. 1 year later, Namika's orphanage, Itsuki's room. In Itsuki's room, all protective seals were turned on. Itsuki was writing in a thin book with a red cover covered with protective seals on every inch on the outside. He was writing and doing some calculations before a sudden spike in chakra outside his window alerted him. Hiding his research notes and book in a scroll and then storing it in a false bottom, he deactivated the protective seals before opening the window. The red-colored messenger toad sat on the windowsill. Itsuki gave the code, and the toad gave the scroll from Jiraiya to Itsuki. Itsuki opened the scroll and was shocked by what he read. Brute and Danzo unsuccessfully attempted assassinating Shisui Uchiha. Shisui's body was later found in the Naka River, and both his eyes were missing. The Night Route will be disbanded, but Danzo will not go down that easy. I wrote only one line in the letter Jiraiya. Get back ASAP. The countdown to Uchiha massacre begins. Somewhere in southern Land of Fire, Jiraiya was busy with his research when Messenger Toad River summoned itself near him. Reluctantly he left his research, but as soon as he read the report, his expression turned serious. He'd activated protocol ASAP, Danzo must be up to something big. Jiraiya took out a pair of earrings with a paper slip attached and wore them. He had marked 2 root anbu with seals similar to one he used to spy on Naruto, just more discreet. But once activated they could only be sustained for 2 days. ASAP was the code word to signal their activation. Getting up, Jiraiya wore the 2 earrings and jumped from his position and started to run towards Konoha while simultaneously listening to seals on the root agents. Even at full speed, it would take me an entire day to reach Konoha. I just hope I make it in time. Danzo had just ordered Itachi to exterminate the entire Uchiha clan, and Itachi had agreed. Shisui's death has pushed him to edge, and Itachi knew there is no longer a peaceful solution to Uchiha treachery. Either Itachi could watch his entire clan wiped out by Konoha along with his brother, or he could kill them himself while saving his brother. Danzo knew Itachi had only one weakness, that is his brother. Only this knowledge allowed him to manipulate Itachi into killing his own family. Danzo allowed himself a smile, a rare show of emotion to award himself of his success. He made a hand seal and a soft chime spread through the entire underground complex. Just a minute, his entire root force was kneeling in front of him. Danzo examined his personal force for a second and spoke, all of you are assigned to an emergency mission with S-rank priority. Tomorrow at 0100 hours sharp, the entire prison force has to mobilize and exterminate any and all humans present in Sector 17. Danzo knew as much of a genius Itachi is, he could not exterminate all his clan on his own, so he will kill the remaining himself. Moreover, he has to harvest as many Sharingans as he could. All captains take your orders from Fu and Torn. Dismissed. Jiraiya took in a sharp breath, he knew Sector 17 was what Uchiha district was called before Uchihas were forced to relocate there. Effectively Danzo is trying to exterminate the entire Uchiha clan. Hokage needs to be informed of this. Danzo had to be stopped. He summoned a messenger toad and wrote the intel about Danzo attacking Uchiha clan. He sent another toad to Itsuki with spy earrings to keep close tabs on Danzo, as well as 2-way voice transmission seals to keep in touch. Itsuki had always been incredibly perceptive, and he needed his expertise to prevent a disaster. A messenger toad appeared in Hokage's office and delivered intel about Danzo straight to Hokage. Reading the intel, Hokage took a deep breath from his smoking pipe and looked at the kneeling Anbu with crow mask. He had been already informed of Danzo's orders to Itachi by Itachi himself, but even he was skeptical that Itachi could decimate his entire clan on his own. The Uchiha clan is counted among the strongest clans in the entire world for a reason. But Itachi told about Orange Masked Man who calls himself Madara Uchiha, has offered to help him destroy his own clan in exchange for Itachi joining Akatsuki. Remove your mask, Crow, here is an ordered. Anbu removed his mask, and the young visage of Itachi Uchiha came into view. His face betrayed no emotion at the idea of killing his own family. Hiruzen took a good look at what he could say as one of the most outstanding ninjas ever born in Konoha and squashed any regret for what he was going to do next. You are given off-records mission to exterminate entire Uchiha clan and join Akatsuki as a spy and report their activity to Konoha. Itachi simply acknowledged his mission and shunshined out of Hokage's office. Hokage dismissed the isolation formation around his office and opened the window and gave a scroll back to Jiraiya's toad. The second messenger toad that Jiraiya sent for Itsuki summoned itself near the roof and immediately went to Itsuki's window only to find his room empty. Itsuki himself was listlessly roaming the bustling Uchiha district. Security was tight and Uchiha police patrolled the streets, but no one found Itsuki out of place, as if everyone was subconsciously ignoring him. He watched the streets that tonight will be filled with blood and found himself powerless. He could sense the entire Uchiha population and their emotions, the underlying hate and madness as well as happiness, love, acceptance, and more with intensity greater than anything he had felt before. To Uchiha, every emotion they feel is several times stronger than a normal person feels, and Itsuki was finding himself being overwhelmed by all the emotions. He felt restless and angry at his own powerlessness. He had been brainstorming for months and could not come up with any solution to the massacre. He at least wanted to save the civilians that had no part in the coup, but even if he somehow outsmarted Hiruzen and Danzo, he has no chance to deal with Zetsu and Obito. But for some reason, he could not stop himself from coming here one last time, despite knowing the massacre is just a few hours away. He left behind the Shinobi district and went downtown where mainly civilians lived. Walking through the streets he watched a couple go by carrying a 9-month-old baby with unhealthy pale skin. Medic part of his brain guessed the baby to be suffering from respiratory disease and was most likely prematurely born. The couple looked worried and looking at them, an idea formed in my head. Perhaps I cannot save all but at least I can save one. Jiraiya was panicking. He had sent a messenger toad to Itsuki a few hours ago, but he had not got any reply as of yet. The reply from Hokage all but ordered him to not interfere and stay silent. He was having a feeling something terrible is going to happen, and all signs point to Uchiha and Danzo. On the other hand, the orders root agents have received has him chilled to the core. Danzo completely intended to end the entire Uchiha clan, take any active Sharingan they can get on their hands, and abduct any child under the age of 8. It's almost midnight and he needed a few more hours to reach Konoha. Suddenly, the two-way communication seal he gave to Itsuki vibrated. It's Dango, requesting identification, over. Even in this grim situation, Jiraiya could not help but crack a smile at the silly code names they gave each other. Jiraiya replied, affirmative Dango, it's Wizard speaking, Hawk plans to slaughter every person in Sector 17. No counter-response from Monkey yet. Over. Uchiha police station under attack by single chakra source. Half of the police force is already expunged. Sector 17 covered in sensing disruption seals, but I am positive chakra sources in the sector are rapidly decreasing. Over. Jiraiya felt like his whole body was plunged into freezing water. Someone has already started the massacre before Danzo could and had someone powerful enough to single-handedly take on the entire police force and come on top. Jiraiya was speechless for Itsuki's barely composed voice brought him out of his thoughts. Able to breach past sensing seal boundary. Entire Sector 17's population has decreased by 40%. A single chakra source is carrying out the massacre which matches the chakra signature of Anbu Crow. Anbu Crow or Itachi Uchiha. Jiraiya knew his real identity. Itachi was quite famous for being a prodigy in pretty much all ninja skills, youngest Anbu captain, and Uchiha clan's pride. What had possessed him to do what he was doing? Itsuki Hokage needs to informed of this as soon as possible. We have to save before Jiraiya could finish, Itsuki replied. No. Why? What? We need to save the clan. If you are afraid you would be ousted then I could take you under my. Why do you think Hokage does not know? But we have to save. Suddenly his mind caught up to what Itsuki was implying. He stiffly asked. What do you mean? You know something, don't you? Itsuki replied, in a somewhat forced voice. Jiraiya, think a little. You spied on Danzo, you know how he marginalized them. How much suspicion Uchiha clan was under for the Nine Tails attack. Even a corned rabbit bites. What do you think would a powerful and arrogant clan would do? You don't mean to say that the Uchiha clan was planning a coup? Itsuki did not reply, but the answer was all too clear to Jiraiya. So Hokage just ordered Itachi to kill his clan. But what about the massacre at Uchiha Station, who is that? Jiraiya asked frantically. I have no idea. I never sensed that chakra signature before. He is definitely an Uchiha. I can almost smell the Uchiha madness rolling off his chakra. Itsuki remarked. Jiraiya would have been impressed by sensing skills if he was not so shaken by all the revelations. This was inevitable, believe me. Uchiha clan has too many enemies and they personally wrote their own death when they planned to rebel. This was inevitable, one way or another. Itsuki spoke with a quivering voice. Jiraiya wanted to protest, but the quiver in Itsuki's voice stopped him right in his tracks. Suddenly Jiraiya realized something. Itsuki said he could sense madness. If he could sense the intruder's emotions, then he could also sense everyone else. Jiraiya's eyes widened as the implications of what Itsuki was being through hit him. Itsuki, an 11-something child, was practically at the frontline seat to the massacre. He could sense the emotions of every man, woman and child being slaughtered, all their helplessness, desperation, anger, and grief. Jiraiya yelled into the seal. Itsuki stopped sensing. On the other side, in the orphanage, Itsuki ignores Jiraiya and turned off the communication seal. His eyes were red and cheeks tear-strained, but a determined expression on his face. He was focusing on two chakra signatures other than Itachi and Obito. One male, barely at the level of the academy student, and a female civilian both frantically looking around the streets, knocking at doors, asking people. In just a few minutes Itachi will be arriving at their location. Itsuki closed his eyes and made a few hand signs. The couple was wandering from door to door in Uchiha district, trying to find their lost baby. They were not ninjas, therefore, were powerless to do anything. Suddenly, the couple heard a young boy's voice in their head. "Don't worry, she is safe and far away from here." Just as they wanted to ask more, screams started to come out from one house after another. Blood was flowing in the streets, and screams were everywhere. The couple instead of running held their hands. They both know in front of ninjas, they were powerless, but at least their daughter was safe. Gratitude and little worry about their daughter were all that they felt. She will grow up healthy and safe. I promise. Their worry eased just as a merciless sword severed their life. Itsuki stopped sensing and opened his reddened eyes and looked towards the small figure peacefully sleeping on his bed. At least her parents died in peace. Itsuki chuckled mirthlessly. Itsuki then picked up and centered himself before activating Jiraiya's communication seal and heard a panicking Jiraiya. Itsuki reassured him of his well-being before focusing on spy seals on Danzo's Anbu. Both reached a silent consensus to not talk about the massacre for now in favor of knowing Danzo's next move. How will he react to the massacre? How will Hokage keep himself clean after not being able to claim complete deniability about Danzo's role in the massacre due to Jiraiya's intel? They needed to stay vigilant. After all, the night is still young. Danzo was waiting for advanced scouts to report back on Uchiha defenses. He was already prepared for taking route underground after this job to take inevitable blowback from Hokage. He needed to prepare for the resurgence of route after the Uchiha massacre, as he would not be able to recruit more route Anbu legally. But then again, when had that ever stopped him? Bu appeared kneeling in front of him and reported, "Scouting teams have sensed zero activity in Sector 17. The entire sector is silent with no chakra signature present." Danzo's eyes widened a little. He could not believe a 13-year-old had slaughtered the entire Uchiha clan, no matter how talented. He became thoughtful for a movement. Prepare to move all route assets to hidden bases. Mobilize Team Delta and Gamma to scout Sector 17 and kill any survivors, and find and breach the Uchiha library. Danzo ordered. Ready Team Beta to guard me. I am going to meet the Hokage. Moving out towards Hokage Tower, an Anbu with a crow mask appeared in front of Danzo. Danzo immediately became alert and discreetly signaled his team to remain alert. Itachi did not bow to Danzo and just stiffly spoke, "Mission accomplished. Hokage is expecting you at Uchiha Sector's gate." Danzo nodded, but Itachi did not move from his position. Itachi moved near Danzo with blurring speed, and before Danzo could even move, Itachi whispered in his ear, "Danzo, if you lay a finger on Sasuke, Leaf will burn." Itachi states in a voice that chilled Danzo to the core. Danzo took Itachi's threat with utmost seriousness. After all, Itachi was Anbu captain and knew too many secrets of Leaf Village. Just leaking that the Uchiha massacre was done on his orders can instigate a civil war in the village. Saying his piece, Itachi vanished in a murder of crows. Thud thud thud. Danzo looked around at the fallen dead bodies of his protection detail, and for the first time since Madara, Danzo feared someone. Unbeknown to Danzo and Itachi, one of the dead Anbu had a spiral seal under his neck skin. Jiraiya and Itsuki both heard the conversation. Confirmation that Itachi slaughtered his clan on orders from the village unsettled Jiraiya a lot. He was even starting to regret giving spying seals to Itsuki. This is not the stuff a child should have to deal with, even if he is an excellent censor, he is still a child. Itsuki did not say anything. He was more focused on the second marked Anbu and what Danzo's next move is going to be. Hinyazan will dissolve route, but Danzo will not go down that easy. He is bound to take a few drastic steps which he could easily hide in confusion and panic brought by the Uchiha massacre. For a few hours, Itsuki and Jiraiya got nothing but silence from Anbu before a chime, suggesting gathering of all Anbu agents rang in their ears. Both immediately started to pay attention to the situation. For all intent and purposes, the route is disbanded and going undercover. All of you will remain as sleeper agents in your respective assignments inside or outside the village unless called. Team Omega, extract all targets with A and B level recruitment priority and place them in base 133. Dismissed. Danzo's voice was clear even over the static. Itsuki did not take long to understand that he will be most likely among the targets. He immediately went to the drawer and took out a small scroll and left the room, but not before activating all the seals for the protection of his tiny guest. Itsuki's sensing range encompasses the whole village and beyond, but he is only focused on finding strong chakra signatures with muted emotions, a trademark of root Anbu. Jiraiya, I am moving in to intercept the root extraction, Itsuki said to Jiraiya while expanding his sensing range to find dispatched root agents. Jiraiya understood after a movement what Itaki implied. What? Are you mad? Those are Anbu we are talking about. You are talented, but you are just an 11-year-old child. And from what I know, you have no experience in combat. No matter how good you are, without experience, you are just a sitting duck to a single Anbu, much less an entire squad. Jiraiya bellowed. Do you think I do not know that? Itsuki questioned Jiraiya as if asking an idiot. Itsuki knew better than anybody how vital combat experience was to ninja. Even Itachi experienced grueling missions in Anbu to reach his current level. Itsuki in pure Taijutsu combat can barely contend with Hana, who is at the level of an average genin. Even his formidable skills at chakra strengthening can bring his speed and strength on par with most elite jonin, even then he would barely be able to contend with an experienced chunin due to his own lack of experience, much less a whole squad of Anbu. But you have to do it. You can just hide somewhere and let it pass. Jiraiya argued. You and I both know that is a small-term solution. Danzo would never leave me alone if I did that. Danzo already has enough interest in me, if I am the only one escaping from him now, I will be in a lot more danger next. Itsuki replied. Then let me handle it. Just stay hidden till I arrive. How long till you reach Konoha? Itsuki asked. I am not far from the village. Just about an hour. Jiraiya replied. Itsuki sensed a number of presences matching the parameters of root Anbu. He let out a sad sigh. I really hope to avoid doing this. Then you will be too late. Come to my office in the morning. Itsuki replied to Jiraiya and cut off the communication link. He needed full focus for the task ahead. Itsuki donned a fox mask and a dark gray hooded robe used by Anbu on long-term stealth missions and started moving at an extremely fast pace towards the Hokage monument. He did not want to engage in direct combat with Anbu before he could find a way to circumvent his lack of experience, but when Danzo started to pay special attention to him, he knew this was inevitable. So for last year, he did not try to develop his taijutsu at all, but instead focused on developing a special jutsu. After reaching the Hokage rock, Itsuki directly went to the top of Froth Hokage's stone face. He placed the small scroll in front of him and opened it. A kanji for bow was written on it and after supplying small chakra, a bow about the same height as Itsuki appeared in front of him. The entire body of the bow was entirely covered with paper seals adhered to the bow by applying varnish over them. The bow is a weapon ninjas rarely use and for a good reason. The reason is simple, even the best bow can send arrows at about half the speed of sound, which while fast is nothing to an experienced ninja. A competent jonin can travel via shunshin at speed faster than sound. Avoiding a small arrow that is fired from a long range is child's play. Not only that, bows are bulky, clumsy to use in combat, and arrows need to be handled with care. But in the right conditions, a bow can serve as effective assassination devices. Itsuki unfolds the scroll a little more till kanji for silent arrows appeared. Pumping chakra into the symbol, Itsuki retrieves half a dozen black metal skewer-shaped featherless arrows. Each arrow had 3 seals, one at the tip with kanji target, another at the shaft with kanji airless, and the last at the tail end with kanji fire and contain. He then creates a small genjutsu to make himself invisible and lays down a sealing array around him to mute chakra fluctuations from his location. He picked up a single arrow from the pile and mentally locked on a chakra nearing Naruto's old orphanage. Making one-handed hand seals in pattern tiger, rat and ram while keeping the other hand above the arrow's tip. The target character at the tip of the arrow started to glow in a dull golden glow. Itsuki then knocked the arrow and expertly sent chakra through the other 2 seals, and both began to glow too. Pointing towards the oblivious Anbu, Itsuki knocked the arrow to the bow and pulled back with all his might, using every ounce of chakra control to strengthen his arm muscles, going as far as to activate the strength of 100 seal, but he was only able to pull back the bowstring halfway. Target was about 4 miles from his location. This much is enough, Itsuki calculated while gritting his teeth. He reinforced about his maximum capability, but he is still not able to use it at its full ability. Itsuki let loose from the taut bowstring and the arrow vanished faster than he could blink. Arrow released moved without a sound, the airless seal creates a vacuum around the arrow, letting it move through the air without any resistance with a speed 5 times faster than the speed of sound. The target seal homing in on the target. In a few seconds, the arrow was upon the still oblivious Anbu, piercing his body, and then brutally ripped apart his entire torso through sheer kinetic energy. Uam. The remnant of the arrow drilled through several walls behind him and a few meters into the ground before the explosion seal at the tail end went out, destroying any evidence of arrow. This happened so fast that while the torso was reduced to a pulp, the legs were still moving forward. While the arrow was silent, the dull explosion and noise of collision probably woke half the village of trigger-happy ninjas. I did not have much time. Itsuki thought. Itsuki pushed down the bile rising in his throat and picked up another arrow. Repeating the same procedure, Itsuki fired again and again and again. Every Anbu he locked onto was killed without fail. Soon entire Anbu squad lay dead. Itsuki could not take it anymore and emptied his stomach then and there. When Jiraiya reached Konoha, the entire village was in turmoil. Anbus were patrolling the perimeter of the village, while ninjas were searching the village. Even with his limited sensing capabilities, Jiraiya could feel hundreds of chakra signatures actively moving about. Reaching the village gate, he completed the entering protocols and confirmed that the entire village was lacking for Itachi Uchiha for the genocide of his clan. Thanking the guards, Jiraiya made his way to Hokage Tower. On his way, Jiraiya saw a familiar figure and jumped down the alley. A middle-aged man with black hair tied spiky ponytail and wearing a dark green Jonin flak jacket was crouching in front of what looked like a crater created by a high-grade explosive note. Standing by the crouching figure, Jiraiya asked sarcastically, "Fine night isn't it, Shikaku?" Shikaku Nara grumbled incoherently, not even bothering to dignifying one of the legendary Sannin with a response, but Jiraiya took no offense. While not as famous as a Sannin, Shikaku was considered a legend in his own right among ninja ranks and earned his name in the Third Great Ninja War for his brilliant and brutal tactics, as well as for being the impromptu head of the Ino Shikacho alliance among many more. Beneath his lazy exterior, Shikaku is among the most dangerous and ruthless ninjas ever to be born in Konoha. So I am guessing what I am seeing in front of me is another one of Itachi's victims? Jiraiya questioned, noticing the smell of blood in the air. Possible but highly unlikely. Shikaku lazily replied. This here is one of the 10 murders that happened all over the village in less than 20 seconds of each other. Jiraiya instantly thought of Itsuki and pressed on, so from the looks they killed simultaneously for culprits to escape before we could respond. Shikaku shook his head, at first it looks like that, but every one of them died in the same way to the same unknown technique before they could respond. Pointing at the remaining lower body laying about 100 meters from their location, Shikaku continued, every one of them died while moving very fast, most likely a while in Shunshin, so it was impossible to be a simultaneous ambush. It was most likely to be a long-range Earth-style jutsu that carried explosive notes of some kind fired by a single person. And according to my estimate, it came from right there. Shikaku pointed towards Hokage Rock on the other side of the village. Jiraiya whistled, if it was true then whatever jutsu Itsuki used, it was damn impressive. It didn't take much to connect the dots and figure out everyone killed was a root Anbu. And if his guess was right, Shikaku too knew that. So any leads yet? Jiraiya asked carelessly, but on the inside, he wanted to keep Itsuki's involvement quiet. No, but I have sent an Inuzuka member to find any scent at the location. I will start to cross-refer the DNA at. That won't be necessary. A rough voice cut Shikaku. Turning around, Shikaku and Jiraiya saw Danzo walking towards them. Shikaku gave a very shallow bow to the advisor, while Jiraiya did not even bother. This investigation is being suspended until further notice, Danzo stated. Shikaku nodded, not even bothering to ask the reason behind the decision. Danzo turned and disappeared. Well, isn't he all sunshine and rainbows? Jiraiya laughed. Jiraiya tried for hours but was not able to find Hokage. Seeing as the sun has risen, Jiraiya decided to stealthily check up Itsuki. Poor kid had been through a lot. Making way towards the office where Itsuki said to meet Itsuki, he noted that chaos in the village has mostly settled. The hospital was peaceful, with no extra traffic other than a few injured Anbu who were pursuing Itachi. Reaching the office, he remained invisible and knocked on the door in code. The door opened and Itsuki stared right at him with dull grey eyes, completely disregarding his invisibility. For a moment, Jiraiya's breath stilled. He felt something in Itsuki he never felt before. But in a moment the feelings are gone and Itsuki discreetly gestured him to come in. Jiraiya entered a moderate-sized office and Itsuki activated privacy seals on the walls and sat on his chair. In front of him was a scroll that contained various sealing formulas and calculations. "Are you alright, kid?" Jiraiya softly asked. Itsuki nodded. But the bags under his dull eyes, as opposed to their usual vibrant grey, told another story. Kid witnessed a massacre and performed his first kills, he was definitely not okay. Jiraiya was never good with sentimental stuff, so he just stood there like an idiot, not knowing what to do, watching Itsuki calculating some complex sealing formula. Itsuki then placed the scroll in front of Jiraiya and told him to check it. Just a look and Jiraiya knew he was looking at one of the most complicated pieces of sealing he ever laid eyes on. These seals were pieces of art. What are these? These are amazing, but if I am not wrong, these are just chakra storage seals, Jiraiya questioned in bewilderment. Chakra storage seals are not easy, but neither are they a challenge to seals expert like Itsuki. Unless. Those are applied to the body, are they not? They are impromptu strength of hundreds seals. While chakra storage seals are easy, none could directly replenish the user's chakra like the strength of 100 seal, neither has storage capacity and ease of transfer even nearing it. But if Itsuki was trying to accomplish was successful, we'll be able to create an even more terrifying seal. Itsuki smiled, pointing at the crescent moon-shaped silver seal diagram, he explained, this is Yin seal, which stores Yin chakra like Tsunade-sama stores it in her strength of the 100 seal. Then pointing at a diagram of an orange circular seal, Itsuki continued, and this is Yang seal, to store Yang chakra. Jiraiya put down the scroll, trying hard to not admire the work in front of him. Scowling, Jiraiya asked, what do you want? Don't deny it, you would not have dangled these in front of me if you did not need my help with something. Out with it. Itsuki did not look fazed at all for being busted and simply said, I want you to run an off-the-records mission for me. What is the mission? Well, I want to deliver some important medical ninjutsu scrolls to Tsunade-sama and get a response to them. Itsuki nonchalantly replied. Jiraiya gulped. He did not want to meet Tsunade. The last time he got enough beating and she has a long memory. But perhaps he could get Itsuki a favor this time, as well as get to study his amazing creations. But he still pressed on. And my reward? Jiraiya cheekily asked. Itsuki took out another scroll and placed it in front of him. Perhaps a jutsu capable of killing from 5 miles away is enough. Don't deny, I could sense your curiosity since you entered my office, you want to know how I killed those rude Anbu. Damn him and his ability to sense emotions, Jiraiya internally complained. But he was curious, he can't deny it. But he will not take payment from someone who has done so much for him. Pushing back scroll towards Itsuki, Jiraiya replied, I admit I am curious. But such a powerful jutsu as payment will not sit well with me. Itsuki shook his head, my jutsu is not that powerful as you think, and neither is it complete. Pulling out a scroll, he released 2 metal skewer-shaped arrows and handed them to Jiraiya. Jiraiya looked at the black, oddly shaped arrows and frowned. From the weight, he could not guess what metal it and seals confused him even more. Target seal. How was that supposed to work? Itsuki pulled out a bow and placed it in front of him and started to explain, this bow here is reinforced and can propel those arrows at 3 times the speed of sound. The rune seal at the middle makes it silent even at that speed and encountering virtually no resistance. And with my sensing and jutsu, I can lock onto a chakra signature I want to target and fire. Jiraiya stilled, this could be a terrifying technique, at least S rank. He looked at Itsuki who snorted at his expression, it is not without its problems. Pointing at the target seal and arrow he continued, do you know how this works? I fire at the targeted chakra, well the arrow corrects its path 2 ways, 1, I have to consciously control the arrow towards the target in its flight, and second, it automatically moves towards the targeted chakra. But both methods have problems, first arrow moves 3 times the speed of sound, just to put in perspective, that is just over a kilometer in a second. How am I to control an arrow at that speed to hit a target miles away? But targeting the chakra of a ninja, even more difficult. A ninja usually suppresses the chakra leaking out of their body at all times, I can sense the but not the targeting seal. And if someone uses ninjutsu or even a standard academy clone, targeting seal will confuse and miss the target. And you underestimate a ninja's instincts. From a mile away, even if no one heard it coming, but it still has chakra. As it is now, hitting a stationary joint from a mile away is next to impossible. That's why I devised this technique for a medium range to go along with stealth techniques. Jiraiya carefully thought about what Itsuki said and more specifically what he did not say. Not capable of killing a jonin from more than a mile away, but jonin were not radishes that grew in the field. A jonin is among the most elite ninjas of the village, something every ninja aspires to become. It also means that while he could not kill a jonin, he can kill everyone below that rank. Jiraiya examined the bow and noticed tiny cracks along with the entire structure, despite being reinforced by seals, and marveled at just how much strength was needed to even pull this damn thing. But one question remained in his mind, how was he even able to kill an entire squad if this jutsu was that difficult to pull off? Itsuki sensing his confusion replied simple, they were in Shunshin and hence moving in a predictable straight line and constant speed and their chakra was not suppressed, making them sitting, glowing ducks to target seal. Moreover, Shunshin gives you tunnel vision, they simply did not see it coming. Jiraiya nodded but understood Itsuki was deliberately downplaying the jutsu. Moreover, it was an incomplete version. Jiraiya shuddered, he did not want to see a complete version if just an incomplete version is so terrifying. Suddenly he remembered Minato when he killed the entire army in seconds using flying Raijin and the conversation he had with him over sake at night after that. He never developed flying Raijin further after that. He decided to take the jutsu along with the bow and remaining arrows as mission payment, even if only for safekeeping. Itsuki, as he was right now, will never be able to complete the jutsu, not without being constantly reminded about his first kills. Itsuki watched Jiraiya leave, and not long after that, he heard knocking on the door and Captain Kido entered his office. Itsuki put on a jinjutsu on his face to hide his tiredness. As he was right now, he could not even muster the energy to smile and let the jinjutsu do it for him. Itsuki, the girl you brought, she has some complications and I thought it was appropriate that you diagnose her. I nodded. It was just standard procedure as patients brought by medics were usually treated by the said medic, and despite being a senior medic, I still needed experience with rarer conditions. Reaching a cradle, I saw the tiny girl I saved and raised my hands to perform diagnostic techniques, but I found myself holding a bow. A bow covered in red warm blood. I hastily withdraw my hand and check for blood on my hands. Kido looked at Itsuki with worry. Itsuki was not behaving like himself. Captain, perhaps can you perform this diagnosis? Itsuki asked, still a little out of it. Okay, but are you fine? Kido asked. This was the first time Itsuki ever declined a request to help. I am okay, it's just my hands feel filthy. It took Jiraiya 3 months to track down Tsunade to a bar in the land of vegetables. Finding her was never easy, even with one of the best spy networks in all elemental nations. Entering a modest sake bar, Jiraiya spotted Tsunade with her apprentice Shizune and pet pig Taunton, drinking like no tomorrow. Long time no see, Tsunade. Jiraiya sat opposite to Tsunade with a cheeky smile. Huh, Jiraiya and Monkey Sensei again calling me back? Tsunade asked, eyeing the scroll Jiraiya pulled out. No, it was a personal request from Itsuki. Jiraiya offhandedly replied but carefully monitored Tsunade's reaction. Technically Tsunade should not know Itsuki, but he had a sneaking suspicion for years that Tsunade maintained contact with the medic department even after she left Konoha. Given that Tsunade is still believed as their head despite basically abandoning them was baffling in itself. And true to his hunch, Tsunade did not ask who Itsuki was. She did not even act to make him not suspicious. She simply took the scroll and started to read, any trace of drunkenness vanishing from her face. Unsealing few writing supplies, Tsunade started working on the scrolls with a single-minded focus. The day passed and night came, but Tsunade kept glued to her seat. Neither Shizune nor Jiraiya disturbed her or left. When the shopkeeper asked them to leave, Jiraiya handed him a thick stack of ryo to leave them alone overnight. For him, seeing Tsunade this focused, so unlike her usual drunken broken self, reminded him of old times. Then all others saw Tsunade as a spoiled princess, and to a certain extent, she was. But very few knew how brilliant she is when she decided to apply herself. It was dawn when Tsunade put down her pen. She was scowling at the paper before rolling and throwing at the face of sleeping Jiraiya. Huh, you done? Jiraiya caught the scroll before it could hit him, waking up instantly. Sending a glance at the sleeping form of Shizune, he asked Tsunade, how about we go on a walk? Tsunade nodded, but not before picking up a sake bottle from behind the counter. Making a way outside, they roof-hopped till reaching a cliff overlooking the entire city. Tsunade pulled out sake and poured in 2 cups Jiraiya pulled out of somewhere. So, you indeed know Itsuki, Jiraiya stated. Tsunade nodded. Jiraiya smiled, I figured that much. That kid does not respect anybody, not even Hokage or me, but he always refers to your name with an honorific. I thought you would want to know more about what is in the scroll. Tsunade tried to divert the topic. I admit I am curious. Is it another jutsu, because I saw his handiwork with another one and I must say, I am damn impressed. Jiraiya decided not to press the matter and take the bait. It is a jutsu I admit, but I have no idea even what it is supposed to do other than one thing. Tsunade ended in a foreboding tone. And what is that? Jiraiya asked. Complete immunity to the user to any and all genjutsu other than user's own, Tsunade stated. Jiraiya's jaw dropped. Immunity to all genjutsu is not something Tsunade will say lightly. She knew the existence of Mangekyo Sharingan and its horrific inherent techniques like Tsukiyomi and Izanami. Ignoring the look of shock on Jiraiya's face, she continued, and for what I could guess that is just a side effect of real technique. He wants to force some sort of evolution of chakra, but I can only guess. And you have been helping him. He wants me to make a backdoor in the technique, so he is not immune to genjutsu he applies to himself. Been working for a year on it, but he strangely got anxious enough to send you to personally deliver. Do you have any idea why? Tsunade questions. No idea. But internally Jiraiya believes it has something to do with what happened on the night of the Uchiha massacre. Tsunade does not continue the line of conversation. Both quietly enjoyed sake while watching the sunrise. I think it is high time I leave. By the way, you know any blacksmith here? It was about noon that Jiraiya decided to leave Tsunade and Shizune. Why? Blacksmiths here does not make weapons, Tsunade replied, a little too harshly. No, I just find out what this metal is. Jiraiya unsealed a black metallic arrow given by Itsuki and showed it to Tsunade. I have been asking every blacksmith I could find, but no one knows which metal or alloy is this. I was on my way to Land of Iron to find something similar. Jiraiya lamented. Tsunade examined the arrow and saw seals inscribed on the metal. Now Tsunade is no seal master, but she is no novice either. Who was the idiot who inscribed seals directly on metal without any chakra medium? That idiot happens to be Itsuki. And before you ask, seals work without a medium. Jiraiya changed chakra into the arrow, causing the middle and tail seal to glow, signaling their activation. No metal I know could have seals directly inscribed on them, Tsunade stated, but soon adopted a disinterested facade. Whatever, just leave me alone. Tsunade shooed Jiraiya out of her hotel room. Sensing Jiraiya leaving, Tsunade called Shizune, reach capital of wind, I will take a detour. Ah, Tsunade-sama, are you again going to Konoha? Shizune questioned. Tsunade did not reply, opting to leave through the window. Sitting in his office, Itsuki was reading some medical reports. The last 3 months were not kind to Itsuki. He still could not fully deal with trauma. But the real problem was the girl he saved had a rare genetic disease with no known cure. His dulled eyes zoomed on one name in particular. Ichika, meaning 1000 flowers. It was the name he decided for her to disassociate from her previous identity. A name he gave her when everyone has given up all hope for her survival. But it was his promise to her parents that drove him. But even with his vastly superior mystic Yang Palm, he was only delaying the inevitable. At best she has a year left to live. Kido knocked on the door and entered Itsuki's office. He looked at ragged hair and bags under Itsuki's eyes and sighed. Kido and many other medics have tried to explain to Itsuki that sometimes it is simply not possible to save everybody, but Itsuki stubbornly refused to give up. Even Tsunade watched her loved ones die in front of her. They just hoped he was able to bear the pain and grow out of it instead of succumbing to it like Tsunade. As for the chance of treating her, it simply was not possible. Any genetic disease was incurable. It simply was not possible no matter how talented a medic was. Kido sighed and was about to say something when someone's presence behind him interrupted him. Kido turned and was surprised by the newcomer. Giving a quick bow, Kido left the office. Itsuki too, sensing the newcomer, raised his head and stood up from his seat. Giving a bow, Itsuki greeted the newcomer. Welcome to my office, Elder Danzo-sama. Danzo nodded and featured Itsuki to take his seat before continuing, Itsuki, I have a proposition for you. Hidden Leaf Village is the only village where medics have a separate military branch all to themselves. This is mostly due to the efforts of Tsunade and other medics at the end of the Second Great Ninja War to help increase the survivability of ninja forces. But more often than not, medics are completely overlooked by ninjas. When Iryo-nin Medical Ninja Corps was established, Tsunade established 4 ironclad rules which all but forbidden medics from fighting in combat until they are the last ones left standing, with the only exception being medics who had mastered Creation Rebirth, which incidentally, no one ever has except Tsunade. Years passed and combat medics became a relic of the past. People started seeing medic nin more as doctors rather than assassins they were, forgetting even without much combat experience, medics were extremely skilled ninjas by virtue of their chakra control alone, much less techniques like chakra scalpel that can be used kill as easily as they can save lives. Most people forgot but Danzo didn't. Iryo-nins being the only branch of Konoha military, other than Rude Anbu while they were active, that is not directly answerable to Hokage, he always coveted it. But Iryo-nins have always been off limits to him and still is simply due to the sheer influence of Tsunade, and with her being head of the Senju clan, one of the founding clans, touching anything under her was political suicide. Tsunade headed the entire department for decades despite not even being present in the village, and no one was deemed fit to succeed her until now. It is spoken in hushed whispers among Medic Corps, but no one can deny Itsuki is being nurtured to become the next head of Medic Corps. For Danzo, controlling him could mean controlling all Iryo-nins in the future. Itsuki, I have a proposal for you, Danzo stated informally, foregoing normal procedure for Itsuki to let his guard down. But Itsuki remained unmoving by his tactics and his body language remained unreadable. Danzo internally frowned, he felt like standing in front of Hiruzen and not able to glean what is he thinking. Such control of body language is what he would expect from an experienced Kage while negotiating a treaty, not from an 11-year-old. Please be seated, no need for formalities. I have been hearing that you are trying to save a girl with a rather difficult disease. If you agree, I can help you with it. Danzo threw the bait, but the fish was already in the net. Hidden from the view, Sharingan spun in his bandage-covered eye. Itsuki was really not in the mood to play mind games with Danzo, although that did not mean Itsuki lowered his guard. The bait in his words was quite clear, and he decided to play along. You must be joking, Danzo-sama, it is not something even Tsunade-sama can treat. Genetic diseases are incurable. Itsuki stated, discreetly touching under his table and did something only a sealing master is capable of. Where he touched, black sealing lines appeared, forming a complete seal within a second. Tsunade is a very capable medic, but even she is not capable of everything. I personally know someone who can help. You just need to agree. Think about a little, Danzo continued. Itsuki pretended to think over a little. Danzo, what are you planning? Luring me with half-baked trap, did he intend, wait did he just end chakra to his eye? His offer is good, I probably should take it. No, I had to take it, how can I say no to Danzo-sama? I had to. An explosion rocked the Itsuki's entire office. From the left of where Itsuki was seated, fire and shock wave erupted. Danzo quickly retreated, but Itsuki got caught in the explosion. Smoke and debris filled the entire room. DCH Kodamatsukami was almost complete. What happened? Danzo wondered, but he now had to move to the backup plan. Danzo motioned his hidden guard Anbus to attack. Itsuki, while sitting in the office, was completely frozen at his place. The explosion had not done much damage other than burning his left arm slightly. That damn old coot tried to mind control me. Katomatsuki, I was just a few moments away from being under his control. If I was late in making the seal, he sensed someone outside rapidly molding chakra and approach his location. His office overlooked outside training grounds and multiple chakra signatures were approaching from that side. But on the other hand, medics were also alert and approaching his location, but they still needed to pass through the narrow halls of Konoha General. The closest to his location, Kido, was being delayed by Danzo. Fire release Great Fireball Jutsu. The large ball of fire approached Itsuki's office through his open door, blowing it off hinges and damaging the walls holding it. Itsuki quickly moves out of the path before fire could hit him and crouched down in the corner, holding his breath and prepare for the explosion. The fireball hits the table and completely blows it up. The resulting fire spreads outwards in the small room, setting everything inflammable near it on fire. A figure wearing common civilian clothes and a blank white mask entered through the destroyed door just as the initial wave of fire passed. Disguised root ninja was about to throw a few explosive tags when fire burning came alive. A fiery serpent made of blood-red fire rose from the burning remains and jumped at the attacker. Anbu tried to move, but his feet appeared stuck to the floor. Looking down, to his horror, his feet were merged with the floor as is sinking through quicksand. Realizing he was in Jinjutsu, he tried to break it, but the fiery serpent swallowed him. In the real world, screams and the smell of burning flesh filled the room. The intruder's entire body was burning and charring black, but no fire to be seen on his body. Even the clothes and explosion tag in his hand were pristine. Itsuki, while holding the Jinjutsu, watched a horrific sight apathetically while trying to force down the bile rising to his throat. His left arm was burned from the fireball, and he had to use just a one-handed half-rat seal with his right hand to maintain Jinjutsu. Although his mastery of the Kurama bloodline was not enough to externalize cause like fire in this case, the effect is still carried on from Jinjutsu to reality. The now dead intruder fell to the floor with a thud. Itsuki rushed to him while pulling out an incendiary tag hunter nin used to dispose of bodies. Sticking the tag to the intruder's back, he pushed the dead body into the burning fire, incinerating it completely to ash. Sensing more chakra signatures approaching to attack, Itsuki's figure walked out of the burning room. One enemy ninja was almost upon him just as he made his way through the destroyed door. The attacker threw a kunai at Itsuki, trying to nail him on the head. Kunai swiftly covered the small distance and true to root Anbu's aim, pierced Itsuki's forehead. However, kunai passed through the Itsuki's figure before it dissolved in cherry blossoms. Anbu immediately dispelled the Jinjutsu just in time to dodge Senbon's aiming for his neck. Jumping back, Anbu readied for another barrage from Itsuki, unable to sense the Senbon coming from above. Poison-tipped Senbon found its mark in the attacker's neck, sending him straight into unconsciousness. Magusa appeared from the floor above Itsuki, Senbon between each knuckle, poised to attack. Assessing the situation, Magusa pulsed his chakra in a specific code. More medics soon followed, not even stopping a second and attacking the root equivalent of the entire Anbu squad. Itsuki watched in silent awe as Iroh-nin systematically dispatched a force equivalent to an entire Anbu squad. Magusa, who stood beside him in case of a sneak attack, smiled at his expression and placed his hand on his shoulder. Always remember this, Itsuki, as Iroh-nin, our foremost duty is to heal and save lives, but we are ninjas nevertheless, Magusa advised. He, as well as most senior medics, hoped that Itsuki could one day lead them. Despite being not even a genin yet, he had accomplished far more as a medic than most of them had in their entire life, but he was still naive to ways of the world. In mere moments, half a squad was incapacitated when Danzo appeared, followed by Kido. Discreetly signaling his squad to retreat, he addressed Magusa without as much as a glance towards Itsuki. "Magusa, why are your ninja attacking my guards?" Danzo asked with a straight face. Magusa signaled Itsuki to leave. Even if Danzo was in the wrong and the main target of his attack Itsuki, it no longer mattered as the assault was carried out on senior medic Itsuki, not Genin cadet Itsuki. The problem was bound to blow out of proportion. But currently, for Magusa, Itsuki's safety was the main priority as he was not yet ready to be dragged into the dirty political underbelly of Konoha. Itsuki too somewhat understood what Magusa was trying to do. This was not a case of an attack on him by Danzo, but an assault on Irionins by the village elder Danzo. It was a moot point who was the victim. Leaving Danzo and Magusa, Itsuki walked away. It didn't take long for adrenaline to fade and the enormity of the situation to hit him. I was just a few seconds away from becoming a mind-controlled slave to Danzo, a moment away from dying and… The scene of the man burning charred black kept replaying in his mind. His dying screams kept echoing in his ears. Listlessly, Itsuki kept walking until a hand yanked him back. Raising his head, Itsuki found an old lady appearing to be in her 80s holding his collar. She wore a medic's white coat over civilian grabs, long, stark white hair, and a face filled with wrinkles. "They leaving without meeting me even when I dragged my old bones here for you?" the old lady pointedly asked. Asa Suzuki, a retired medic who served as a medic for Konoha for decades before retiring, highly decorated and respected, she drops by few times every year to help in matters of the Irionin department even after retiring. Or at least that is the official story. "Ah, good to see you, Tsunade-sama." Itsuki greeted the disguised Sannin. Author notes. The ninja ranks are a measure of the skill and prowess of a ninja. I too am using ninja ranks as a way of indicating the level of characters, but in this story, they are not absolute. For example, Itsuki in this chapter roasted an Anbu level in seconds, which I place at about the level of a Jonin, while I compared Itsuki to a Chunin. In fight scenes of this novel, more often than not, I will try to make the fights a battle of wits, cunning, and ingenuity, than just throwing jutsu after jutsu or hacking at enemies until the higher ranking one will not happen. Itsuki absolutely dominating his opponents will definitely happen, just not now. The reason behind this is because I did not want to make ninjas single-dimensional, where the only measure of strength is who can throw bigger jutsu. Ninjas here are assassins, spies, survival experts, thieves, soldiers, healers and so much more, and I will try to depict it best as I can. But for those who like reading overpowered characters, do not worry. This volume is named The Terrifying Genin for a reason. Tsunade was not amused. The recent attack on Itsuki was completely Danzo's fault and everybody knows it. But when the case was brought in front of the council, the majority still decided to support Danzo's. But what really pissed her off was that Hokage was also supporting Danzo despite everything he has done. Oh, how much she hated politics. Tsunade was seated, undisguised in a secret research room of Irionin Corps, with only other occupant being Itsuki. It has been 3 days since the whole Danzo fiasco, and despite Medicorps' best efforts to keep Itsuki out of the matter, he was still dragged into the storm. Who would have guessed they would target Itsuki? But then again, in the hindsight, them targeting Itsuki was only natural. Medicorps is now the only branch independent of Hokage, which means a lot of political clout, but due to the leader not being present in the village, its influence is minimal. Now if someone capable of succeeding Tsunade appeared, it's only natural he would be targeted. She came to the village due to the letter Itsuki sent through Jiraiya, a request to help complete a jutsu he was developing, along with an incomplete version of the said jutsu. But the letter Jiraiya delivered was addressed to Asa Shizuki, not Tsunade Senju. Only Magusa and a few others know of her identity as Asa Shizuki. As Asa, she had a good relation with Itsuki and helped him develop his signature mystic yang palms. She never knew he knew her identity all along and she still could not figure out how. In front of her, Itsuki was reading research notes on Hashirama's cells. This very lab was used for research on the cells with the permission of Tsunade. After the attack, Itsuki asked permission to read the research to complete his jutsu. Tsunade knew Itsuki invented Mystic Yang Palm by studying her grandfather's cells, as well as the theory of incomplete technique he sent through Jiraiya was heavily grounded in his study of said cells. Tsunade noted Itsuki complete his reading and opened a thin red book covered with more protective seals than she had known in her life. Rising from her seat, Tsunade walked towards him. "So, finally done?" she asked. "Yes, just about done. We should be ready to go," Itsuki replied, handing the open book for Tsunade. She gave the book a cautionary look before holding it. Inspecting the book, through all the seals Tsunade was able to barely make out the title. Apotheosis Tsunade read. Looking towards Itsuki, she asked, meaning elevation of someone to a divine status. "Why this title?" Itsuki questioned back, "What do you think this jutsu does?" "Some form of chakra evolution," Tsunade answered, half sure. Itsuki nodded but did elaborate. Tsunade was half right, jutsu does trigger chakra evolution, but it was just the start. Reading over the jutsu, Tsunade still could barely understand the workings of the jutsu. She may be the greatest medic of modern time, but the understanding of the chakra required to create this was light years ahead of its time. There was one particular detail that stood out to her. At the start, Itsuki divided the book into multiple chapters, although there was only one chapter. Chapter 1 Unbound Tsunade read, wondering if there were more chapters beside this one. And why name it Unbound? Sighing, Tsunade closed the apotheosis and extended her hand to return it back to Itsuki, but he pushed it back to Tsunade. I don't know what the council will decide for me, but I hope you can keep it if I am not able to continue this work, Itsuki answered. The council was trying to get its hands on him by any means. They have no ground for accusing him of any crime, so all old coots were willing to throw any charge they could find at his head. Anything from embezzlement to spying, but every accusation was shot down by Magusa. This continued for the entire first day after the incident. But the next day, Danzo brought up the accusation of the murder of one of his guards. Despite being true, this was a ridiculous accusation. But there was evidence about vanishing on a guard during the entire incident. But there was no body found, and even the claim, an academy student taking on an Anbu, killing him, and vanishing his body in a short time interval before the rest of the guards and Irionins arrived was plain ridiculous. For the past 2 days, the council and Mugusa were arguing back and forth about this. Council has no evidence against Itsuki that could prove Itsuki killed one guard, but neither did Magusa has any evidence to prove his innocence. If the council won, Itsuki's possessions could be confiscated. And he did not want the village to get their hands on this. But Tsunade declined, throwing the book at him. Geez, have some faith. Even if the council won the case, they will not go to such lengths. And don't you want to save that girl, and you yourself, this technique is the only way. But I alone will not be able to perform it. So don't give up hope. Itsuki nodded, considering her words. He sealed back apotheosis into his mother's scroll before miniaturizing it to the size of a matchbox and putting it inside one of the hidden pockets on his sleeve. A moment late, someone knocked on the door. Tsunade immediately changed into her Asa Shizuki disguise. In that brief movement, Itsuki watched as her fair skin turned slack and turned unhealthy pale, blonde hair turned white. Her disguise is not henge, Itsuki noted, but some advanced body control technique. Magusa entered through the door after Tsunade disengaged the protective seals on the door. Entering, he gave a short bow to Tsunade and addressed her. Council has agreed to let the case go and Danzo pay reparations for his actions, but they also have a few demands regarding Itsuki, Magusa explained, but took on an uneasy expression at the end. Let me guess, they want Itsuki to give up his rank of senior medic and ban him from joining Medic Corps, Tsunade said nonchalantly. Magusa seemed shocked but nodded. Yes, they want to ban Itsuki from applying to the Medicare R&D department for an indefinite period of time. They said the time period would be only a few couples of years, but their words have accountability. They can extend the ban period indefinitely. He pulled out an official document and placed it in front of Tsunade. But this is the best conclusion I could achieve with the whole council against us. Tsunade kept quiet, but her thoughts were not on how long they could extend the ban, but on what they could do during it. Because of these terms, Itsuki would have to join regular ninja forces, and with that, he will be at the mercy of Hokage and the council. They can give him a misranked mission, sending Anbu to assassinate him while on a mission, making him a scapegoat to another village. There were so many ways they can make him disappear. Itsuki too was having similar thoughts. But he also knew when he became a genin, his protection period would be over regardless. Kurama clan's stance is still unclear, and when he became a genin, his past will be investigated thoroughly, and even if the Kurama clan still kept his relations secret, Danzo will want to kill me anyway. And then there is the mysterious person who was the reason behind his mother's death. Tsunade sent Magusa away and turned to face Itsuki. In the past 3 days, Tsunade was able to get a little red on him. So she asked a question that had been bouncing around in her mind for the last 2 days. You really did kill that Anbu, didn't you? She asked. Itsuki did not reply, but him stilling just for fraction of a second. Tsunade knew it was all the agreement she was gonna get. She handed him the document containing the council's conditions. I accept the agreement. And don't worry, I know how to protect myself. Itsuki answered, after reading over the document. She picked the document and left the lab to meet up with Magusa. Leaving the Itsuki behind on his own. She knew he was in pain, but she is the most unqualified person to help others deal with it, where she could not come to terms with her own grief for decades. In Magusa's office, Tsunade placed the document folder in front of Magusa and sat on the visitor's chair. Magusa went over it and noted Itsuki's approval and signature on it. He questioned Tsunade, we both know his life will be in danger when he becomes a ninja. Why are we giving up this easily? Tsunade for a moment remained silent before speaking. You know, once when Nawaki was little, only 7-8-year-old I think, I took him to play in clan's training ground. After a while he got tired, so we both sat to rest under the shade of one of our grandfather's trees. Her eyes blurred a little at the memory. Magusa kept quiet. Tsunade continued, I had brought a full meal for both of us. It didn't take long before we finished up and moved on to dessert. He had quite the sweet tooth, you know. But then, attracted by the sweet fragrance, a lot of flies came over. This annoyed Nawaki, and he tried to swat them away. But he tried and tried but was not able to lay a hand on a single one. I laughing hard on the side, watching him struggle. Suddenly, by quite an accident, he killed one. The dead fly disgusted him, but then he again tried to kill more. And to my shock, after that, he killed them one after another, never missing. She finished and questioned him, so tell me Magusa, why was it difficult for Nawaki to kill in the beginning? Before he was holding back at first, Magusa replied, unsure. You are partially right, he was holding back, just not consciously. Tsunade corrected. Magusa was still unsure where she was going with this. The humans, other men are like flies, just it takes a whole lot more dead bodies to stop consciously holding back. But Itsuki did not, he burned the Anbu without a flick of hesitation. He would not have survived otherwise. Magusa widened his eyes a little bit at the confirmation of Itsuki's kill. Tsunade continued, he has remorse but no hesitation towards killing, just cold logic. It is a very rare physiological profile I saw only 3 times before. Only 3 among thousands upon thousands of people I evaluated over decades, both allies and enemies. You want to know who those other 3 were? Magusa nodded, a little overwhelmed. Tsunade continued, my uncle Tabarama the 2nd Hokage, 4th Hokage Minato Namikaze, and Kinslayer Itachi Uchiha were the only ones other than Itsuki whom I had come across in my entire life. And every one of them was hailed a genius in their own right. If they think Itsuki is a soft persimmon they can chew however they want, they have another thing coming. Next day, Konoha Council Room. Genin Cadet Itsuki, no surname, I view of current incident your rank as a senior medic is withdrawn. Also, you are banned from applying for Medic Corps and Research and Development Departments. Elder Midokado Himura spoke the decree. In front of a semicircular table filled with village elders and clan heads, with Hokage at the helm, Itsuki stood straight, his face betraying no emotion. Do you accept Genin Cadet Itsuki? Midokade questioned. Giving a shallow bow, Itsuki said in a voice devoid of any emotion, I accept, honorable elder. At Nara clan's seat, Shikaku Nara watched Itsuki intently, his lazy demeanor missing. Or more specifically his brilliant gray eyes, oh so similar to someone he used to know. It's been an honor. Itsuki slowly made his way back to the hospital, getting himself to be emotionally ready to say goodbye to a place that had been more home to him than the orphanage or Kurama clan ever was. Entering through the back door, he quietly made his way to Magusa's office. Knocking the door, he opened the door after getting confirmation from inside, only to find Tsunade being the sole occupant, Magusa nowhere to be seen. Itsuki was so distracted that he did not even register not sensing Magusa. Sit Itsuki and close the door behind you. Tsunade pointed towards the empty chair in front of her. Activating privacy seals, she dropped her disguise. Pushing forward 2 scrolls towards Itsuki, she motioned him to read them. Superhuman Strength Technique and Creation Rebirth. Itsuki read the title of the scrolls, astonished. Those were Tsunade's most prized techniques. Opening the scrolls, Itsuki noted that ink was still fresh. Before he could question her, Tsunade raised her hand and stopped him. I read your technique, but if you want to save the girl, your technique is not enough and still far from refined enough to be used. Although if you could modify Creation Rebirth and use it with Yang Chakra like you did with Mystic Palm and use it to treat her, theoretically you could offset the effects of her disease as long as you periodically treat her. Tsunade spoke. Itsuki hung his head, he had a feeling his jutsu was not ready yet, but Ichika had too little time left to live. Standing up from her seat, Tsunade ruffled Itsuki's raven locks before continuing, and you know better than me what your life will entail after you graduate. Consider this a goodbye gift from Medicorps for all the work you did. Tsunade looked at the 11-year-old in front of her and felt pride. His contribution to the medicinal world was invaluable, breaking one of the core stone ideas in medicine, of using only yin chakra. She had observed him since his induction onto the medic program and watched him progress from a rookie underdog to the youngest senior medic in the history of Konoha. She wanted him to one day succeed her and lead Medicorps, but fate had other plans. Walking up to the door, Tsunade changed into Asa Suzuki. Opening the door, she paused for a second. It was an honor to have you here, Senior Medic Itsuki. A truly tremendous honor. And walked off, ignoring the medics who were now standing outside the door. Itsuki numbly watched as everyone he knew in the Medicorps came to meet him. Kido came forward and. It was an honor to have you here. Kido shook his hand. It was a privilege. It was a great honor to work with you. One by one, every medic came to Itsuki. One after another, they shook his hands and spoke to him the words of honor. More and more medics gathered behind, watching senior medics accolade Itsuki. In the end, Magusa came carrying young Ichika and handed her to Itsuki. He nodded, carefully holding her. Walking out of the Konoha General Hospital, Itsuki absent-mindedly walked a few steps before stopping and turning to face his well-wishers standing at the hospital door. Trying to get rid of the lump in his throat and fighting his tears, Itsuki held sleeping Ichika close to his chest and gave a low bow to everyone. Thank you for everything. It truly was a tremendous honor knowing you all. About a year later, Namika's orphanage, Itsuki's room. A small figure opened the door to Itsuki's room and silently made its way in, and closing the door behind. Ignoring the baby sleeping on the bed, the figure made its way towards the person laying sleeping on the study table. With an eager smile, the intruder made his way towards the sleeping person and pulled out a weapon from his pocket and poised to throw it. Suddenly. "Uo!" Intruder shrieked before his mouth was covered by hands. Itsuki's sleeping figure disappeared and real Itsuki materialized behind the intruder, covering his mouth. Itsuki pointed towards the sleeping Ichika and let go of the intruder, who promptly showed his displeasure by throwing an orange ball at Itsuki. "Now Naruto, it's bad manners to throw paint bombs at people," Itsuki scolded, deftly catching the orange ball and disarming it with a pulse of chakra. Intruder, now identified as Naruto, scowled and said, "Damn it Itsuki Nai, today is your graduation. Think how awesome will it be if you attend covered in awesomest orange and impress your sensei with your awesomeness." Itsuki rolled his eyes, noting Naruto wearing his eye-watering orange jumpsuit again. He got ready for the academy, ignoring Naruto's grumbling about people's lack of fashion sense. Gently picking up sleeping Ichika, he and Naruto made their way towards the matron of the orphanage. Approaching her room, Naruto fell a step behind, and when I entered to hand Ichika to her, Naruto stood outside, out of matron's view. Itsuki did not say anything at that and handed Ichika to the matron. On our way to the academy, Naruto is uncharacteristically quiet, not that he blamed him. Naruto carved a loving family above everything else, and since I introduced Ichika to him, she has grown on Naruto. To him, Ichika is like a sister he never had. But he also doesn't want her to suffer the hate he endures simply for her close relationship with him. So he simply learned to hide it from everyone. It might not look like neon orange wearing Naruto even knows how to spell stealth, but he is surprisingly stealthy. Today, when Naruto came to the orphanage and even walked with me but no one other than me noticed him the entire time. He deliberately chooses odd hours to visit us, sneaking in and out without anyone ever getting the wind of his whereabouts. One of the reason he wears neon orange most of the time is because people will not recognize him when he does not wear it. If I did not possess the ability to passively sense chakra at all times, even I would have problems dealing with Naruto's pranks. Rubbing his head, messing with his blonde mop of hair, I smile and offer, "Why don't we go out for some ramen after graduation?" The smile he gave me in return said all. Since my first meeting with Jiraiya, I have taught Naruto on seals. At first, he was very slow to pick up on them, requiring colossal effort to master just basic seals. But Naruto persevered and through sheer guts and determination, he learned all the basics. All that became a moot point when I realized he did not know how to read and write. After I taught him reading and writing as well as calligraphy, Naruto took to sealing like fish does to water. Perhaps not the most naturally talented, he more than makes up for it with sheer hard work. In such a short time, he has reached a level where he will have to select his specialization. Every sealing master there is specialized in one or more subjects of sealing. Like Kushina Uzumaki was a sealing master specializing in barrier seals, which along with adamantium chains, was strong enough to hold 9 tails, and Jiraiya specializes in chakra seals, a common but diverse specialization, although with very few high-end applications. After Naruto selects his specialization, there is little I could do to guide him after that. In a way he could graduation with ease, not having to worry about Naruto's training anymore. Reaching the academy gates, Naruto left for his class, and Itsuki his. Reaching his desk, Itsuki just laid down and went to sleep. A few minutes later, a familiar chakra signature sat next to him, rousing him from his sleep. "You must be some wayward Nara with all the time